God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There are many of you that are here to address the board this evening. I would ask that if you do fill out a speaker card, please write your name legibly so we can acknowledge you in the minutes of the meeting. Also, we typically give 30 minutes for an item for public input. So if you hear someone making the same point you do, please try to give us an abbreviated amount so that we don't have such a long agenda that folks can't get home and go to work in the morning. Okay, thank you. We just returned from closed session where we discussed negotiations and gave direction to staff. Otherwise, no action was taken. I would like to ask for approval of the board agenda.
Point of order, I'd like to table item 10.1, developer fee, Fund 25.
Okay, we will remove that from the agenda for this evening.
And we need to include the roll call on the list, right, on the agenda.
On the next agenda, please include the roll call before.
No, but we do it for this one. Because she's changing the agenda. We're changing the agenda, so it should have been on the agenda. So to add the roll call when it was we did it.
So are you asking us to take roll call right now?
No, I'm asking you to amend the agenda to add a roll call.
Oh, yes. The agenda roll call was taken before we went into closed session. It was missing from the agenda, so that has been added or will be added to the agenda. With that adjustment, can I get a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Please vote.
I've lost my vote.
That's 5 ayes. Member Rodriguez is absent this evening. Next, we move on to student report. Superintendent, would you introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, President Thomas, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, I would like to start with, hold on a second. Newark Junior High School, representatives from Newark Junior High, please step forward and tell us your name and your grade, please.
Hi, I'm Tad Kawabata, the ASB president at Newark Junior High School, and I'm in the 8th grade.
And I am Joshua Limtiaco, the ASB vice president at Newark Junior High School, and I'm in 8th grade.
Many new fun things are happening at NJHS.
Recently, we began our Pennies for Patients program at NJHS. This program brings in money to help people with cancer.
For Valentine's Day, flowers are available for purchase to students and staff.
Because our fundraiser in the beginning of the school year was not very successful, we are having another fundraiser. We are selling cookie dough, candy, popcorn, and much more.
Today, we had our 5th bullying presentation of the year. These presentations help raise awareness about bullying and other topics too.
Thank you for your time and have a great evening.
Does anybody have any questions?
How can people buy your fundraisers?
You can come to the junior high. You can also donate if you'd like. That helps us even more. So,
At the office?
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any student representatives from McGregor campus present that want to present tonight? McGregor, Bridgepoint. Okay. I will turn it over to Newark Memorial High School.
First off, I would like to give recognition to our Students of the Month, Ricky Navas, and I'm sorry if I butcher the name, Sukman Preet Kaur. They were selected by several different teachers across campus that they show Cougar Pride, and they were recognized across our school. Please help me in giving a big well done to Stephanie Huang for representing NMHS at the California PLTW Project Lead the Way State Conference. Stephanie represented MVROP NUSD as a shining example of what is possible within Project Lead the Way pathway. The presentation was called Inspiring and Enlightening by the CEO of Project Lead the Way and attendees at the conference. Interact and Speech and Debate is currently holding workshops. I'm holding workshops every Tuesday and Thursday for students across the campus to prepare for Newark Rotary's speech contest, which will be being held on February 20th. And there's an opportunity to give a speech and win up to $100 in prizes. And if they advance, they can get up to $1,000 in scholarships at the district level. The prompt is what Rotary does for inspiring and changing the world. ASB elections just started as of today. I have decided that I am running for ASB president. So yeah, that's happening. This Saturday, Newark Memorial is hosting the NCS wrestling duels all day long. If you are interested in volunteering or just coming by to support, we'd love to show our Cougar Pride. And then speaking of NCS, our very own reigning NCS champions girls team will be competing this Friday and Saturday at NCS. Last year we had 5 state qualifiers and 7 medalists with a 10 girls team. This year we brought home several trophies and medals throughout the season, and we plan on bringing another NCS plaque this year with our 18 girls team. I hope to win NCS again this year and return to state along with many of my teammates. This will be taking place at Albany High School by Berkeley this weekend. And as for the dramatic change of my hair, it is a tradition for wrestlers to go platinum blonde for good luck for competing at state. Because I got a lot of questions about that. Thank you.
Thank you. If you are elected president, will you still be able to have 2 offices?
So technically no, but nobody else really wants this position or enjoys it as much as I do. I really enjoy this position. Not a lot of kids my age want to sit for hours in meetings and get into the politics of everything, but I actually really enjoy it. I do know he would like to, but you don't have the option until your sophomore year, so.
Okay.
If nobody runs for this position, the ASB president would be the one to step in, so it's kind of me playing the system a bit.
Okay. Well, let's hope it works out.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to call on Ms. Linus to introduce the Spotlight program
Yes.
for today.
Good evening. I'd like to introduce Principal Gallagher, if she could please come forward, and also the Music Elementary team.
Good evening, everybody. My team's a little bit quiet, so they're going to stay back there and celebrate our school. All right. So thank you so much for having us. My name is Amanda Gallagher, and I have the privilege of serving as principal of Music Elementary School. And I definitely look at it as a privilege because I'm going to highlight some of the wonderful things we're doing this year. So just to get some of the more boring things out of the way, our stats. We have pre-K where we have 36 students. Our K through 6 is 299 students. We almost had 300. We were so close, but someone moved. We have 182 English language learners speaking 15 different languages at home. We have 20 teachers. That's our gen ed teachers, our special ed teachers, our intervention teachers, our science resource teachers, and our PE teachers. And we are a Title I school with about 62% of our families get a little bit of extra help, but that's okay because that's what we love. So our biggest change this year was we got to have the preschool join us. So it's quite an honor to have them join us. That's right. We are proud of our preschool team. And with that, there were a few hiccups here and there, but we got past those, and we are having a great time with our preschoolers. So one of the many benefits of having them with us is now they get to go to library every week. And so that's a new benefit. They get to join us for assemblies. So far this year, they've played with cows. And this Friday, we're going to learn to walk safely through the city streets with all the way up to our second grade team. So lots of fun things happening there. So our main initiatives this year we are focusing on math, STEAM, and SPED inclusion. So for math, we are fully diving into our SVMI partnership. So we have 3 teachers currently partaking in that PD and bringing it back to our team. As a site, we're really working with our 8 mathematical practices and how to strengthen our students' math learning and readiness. We are doing iReady to support them in math. That's a district-wide program. But my upper grade teams have gone and found grants to bring in a reflex math program. So really honing in on a targeted area of fluency to make sure our students are as strong as they can be before they move to middle school. And we are now starting number talks. So that's fabulous because we're keep on strengthening our math skills. For STEAM, we started with science and really trying to integrate there, but our 6th grade team also doing integrated engineering products. So every Friday we do STEAM Fridays at our site. So if you're bored, have a little bit of extra time at about 1 o'clock, come on over and see what we're doing. So far we've done catapults. Right now they're working on simulated earthquakes. Always a lot of fun. 5th and 6th grade also are doing coding enrichment through computer programs throughout the day. Of course, we have music for minors at our site. We love to sing. And we have a site ballet folklorico group that's led by our parents. So lots of fun. Come out and see that. Our next steps, we have a grant for a school garden. So we're hoping to get that off the ground. And then SPED inclusion. So NUSD has a policy of including everyone and welcoming everyone. And at music, we take that very seriously. And what that means for us is we want every classroom to serve all students, no matter what their needs are. So we have an inclusion program in K through 2, and it includes students of all different types of learning and abilities. And we embrace that, and we are serving them in the class instead of separate spaces. So although it's only K2 currently, we are, as a whole site, going through Inclusion 101. We are determining where we are as a site with our inclusive practices, growing them, building them, and serving more and more students. So that is our goal with inclusion. Music would be nothing without our parents. We have many strengths, but I think our biggest strength is that music is a family, and we take that very seriously. So we are always looking for ways to increase our parent communication, and this year we embraced Class Dojo site-wide. So no matter what class you're in, we have a Class Dojo app where you can communicate directly with parents. It's like a private social media site. And so some examples up there, our preschool teams will post pictures of their students learning. So you get to peek in throughout the day and see what's going on with your preschooler, which is always nice. Our 4th grade teacher will every day say, hey, this is what we learned in math, and here are some websites if you need help helping your student with homework. That is an example of what went on with language arts. We co-created this writing assignment. If your student's doing a reading response this evening, use this for an example if you want to help them or push their thinking. So all of that we have to our parents. We have a really small school, I think 325 total preschool to 6, 290 of our families are connected to us through this app. So that's huge for us. So if we can't see you in person, we know that you're on the other side of that phone texting us back at 11 o'clock at night. So, and of course, we have our SSC, our ELAC, and our PTA, and they support us and guide us in everything we do. But music would not be music without our students, and I couldn't bring all 325 of them here to speak for me, so I did my best with Larry's help to bring them here for you.
I like the teachers because they help us, and if we're doing something wrong, they always correct it. And I like them. The teachers are nice. When we go to school is that it's here, because that helps people. I like the teachers and recess, and the people who are out in school. You like to go home after school, or do you like to be when you're at school? School is that they take pride in their studies, and they help me a lot. And why? Because I need to learn more. Because I do not know, and sometimes I don't get it. And my school is that they teach us a lot of math. I like it when it's smart. At school, when it's all this knowledge.
So for those of you who don't get to come, that's a little taste of a Friday at our site. Okay? So proud of our students. Thank you so much for letting us come this evening. Oh, what are number talks? Oh, yay, a question. Okay. So number talks, it's a way for our students to stretch their mathematical thinking. Traditionally, we learned how to do math on pencil, paper, algorithms. We want our students to be flexible math thinkers. And so we'll ask them a problem, and then we'll ask them to solve it mentally and then verbalize their thinking, really strengthening their understanding and their number sense. And so by the time they put it on paper, they know their way and they've heard other people. Because as much as I love my students and I know they listen to everything I say, they remember what their friends say even more. So our students, it's just another way for our students to learn.
I was just wondering, because I noticed there's a different way of doing math than when I was in fifth grade or fourth grade. It seems like they actually
I love math. You can come visit me.
Oh, I do. I think it's the greatest thing.
Call him up. So the next slide was just a thank you for letting me present.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. That was very informative. You're doing great things at music school.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Next, we move on to the superintendent's report.
I'd like to start with inviting Diamond Donaldson up to catch us up on what's going on in McGregor. I know that she wanted to give a report on the student report, and I'd give her some of my time for that.
Good evening, Superintendent Sanchez, Cabinet members, and board members. My name is Diamond Gatson Donaldson, a senior at Bridgepoint. Congratulations to our January graduates, Jarrell Rodriguez, Norma San Juan, and Joseph Yeber, our former board representative. Second quarter awards were given this past Friday. 18 students made the honor roll for earning a 3.0 or higher. 2 students earned a 4.0. 20 students received awards for earning 17.5 or more credits. 1 student earned 38.5 credits, and 5 students earned perfect attendance awards. Our third quarter has begun. We have welcomed several new students from Newark Memorial and other high schools.
Thank you very much.
At this time, I'd like to invite Officer Sal Sandoval to come to the podium. He's really here for this item. And I wanted to take a moment to recognize Sal. Sal has been our SRO at Newark Memorial for the last 3 years. He's involved with students, he teaches DARE classes, and he's helped keep our kids safe for the last 3 years and continues to do so. But he's transitioning to a new role as sergeant in the department, and he's still going to maintain his classes. He's still going to maintain his DARE classes, and we can't seem to let him go yet. But I wanted to recognize and honor the work that you do for our community. I know that this year alone, you've done a lot with keeping not only our students safe, but our employees safe in some tough situations, and really even all the way through holidays and weekends and Sundays. I know we talk fairly often, and I just appreciate the effort and the commitment you have to our kids. And we have a certificate we'd like to present you with, and when I do that, I'm going to ask you to step forward and maybe ask the board to take a picture with you. But we do have a gift for you. And there's a few things in here that might help you with a little toolkit when you go to be a sergeant. So we have some pencils here for you, some coffee, because we know you're going to need some coffee. We have a magnifying glass because the devil's in the details. And we have a way for you to shed some light on things. And of course, sometimes you might need some nut thins, a little snack, and sometimes things get a little nuts. And some books that might be helpful. Dealing with difficult people, maybe, is something that might be helpful. Difficult conversations, but also the speed of trust and going from good to great. And you've done a great job for our school. You've done a great job for our kids, kept us safe, and we can't let you go without having something, both that we can give you and knowing that some of your teammate will be watching this and harass you later about the magnifying glass. But I would like the board just to step forward so we can take a picture with Sal and honor him with the certificate. I'm going to ask President Thomas to present you with the certificate. Take a picture, all of you. Okay, Char's got it, okay. We're going to stand up here and face out. Stand in the middle here. There you go. Am I good side?
I don't know.
Officer Sandoval, is there anything you would like to say? Briefly?
Briefly, no, thank you guys. I really enjoy being at the school. I'm still there every day in the mornings, hiding in my classroom. And I'll continue to be there until they push me out. But, thank you guys. I enjoy working with you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
President Thomas, that concludes my report at this time.
Thank you. Next, we move on to public comment on non-agenda items. And we have 3 individuals that are asking to come forward on this topic. First, Robin Kawabata.
Good evening, district and board members. My name is Robin Calvada, and you see Tad more often than me. This is my wonderful son, Tad, and he's one of my 3 children that are in the Newark School District. He's an 8th grader. I have a daughter, Lily, who's at BGI, who's a 6th grader, and my son, Kenji, who is a 4th grader at BGI. And my children have been very blessed, beyond blessed, to have 21 teachers so far. I was counting, okay, this many years, and 12 this year and that last year. 21 teachers so far, and every single teacher has given them 110%. Not only to my children, but the children that they've had over from the first year they started teaching till, oh my gosh, Mr. M has been teaching for 18 years, so many. Mrs. Jorgen's been teaching almost 30. I know times are very tough, and our district is in a very difficult financial situation. And I just need the board to know that we cannot lose any more teachers. Many teachers left last year from the junior high for various reasons, especially in the junior high and high school. It's so crucial. The impact that these teachers have on these children at the junior high level is incredible. And you know, I'm a teacher and I teach kindergarten and I make an impact, but junior high and high school and the counselors in this district, they make a huge impact. That is that crucial between continuing your education or maybe not continuing your education. And I just cannot stress that how important teachers are in this district. This is a very crucial time and a very important time in their life. And I'm very just saddened to hear about the fabulous teachers that are continuing to leave the district. The board needs to find other ways to deal with the budget deficit. We need to find a way to keep all of our counselors, a way to keep all of our teachers, and to keep our class sizes to a reasonable amount. And keep families in Newark public schools, and we can keep our fabulous staff in Newark and not have our staff members leave Newark. And I know it's a very hard time financially, and I hope that you take all those things into consideration. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Kerry Knoop.
Good evening. First of all, I would like to wish Member Rodriguez a speedy recovery, and he's in our thoughts and our prayers, and I hope he will be back as soon as possible. Having said that, I'd like to briefly talk about transparency. You know, I was wondering, if I go to Starbucks and somebody opens the door for me, if I should say thank you. So I checked with my lawyer, and my lawyer told me, you don't have to do it. Do you think then I don't have to do it? When we have an LCAP process, shouldn't the board be for transparency? Or does transparency only stop when you're doing your campaign to get elected? And then once you sit there, the transparency stops. I looked at some old videos from 2015. The same board was discussing whether LCAP should be Brown Act, yes or no. I think it should be. We want to inform the public as much as we can. It doesn't stop with LCAP. When there is an audit committee, subcommittee meeting, I would like to have members report out to this body what was discussed. When there's a liaison committee meeting, I want to see board members give an update to fellow board members and the public what was discussed. Some of these discussions are very important. I heard minutes got lost in the last liaison committee. How can that be? And when there is a liaison committee, please report it on your website. I know it's the city that organized it, so we don't have to do it. We checked with our lawyer. Transparency is a spirit. It's not just looking at letters. So please be more transparent. Thank you very much.
Rachel Bloom.
Hi, my name's Rachel Bloom. I'm the SRT at Graham and BGP. And everyone's like, oh my God, what's she gonna say? It's cool. I'm just here to invite you to Graham's Family Science Night. I made little flyers. It's on the 22nd of February, 6 to 7:30 in the cafeteria. So I just wanted you all to know about it. You can ask Miss Salinas. She went last year. You can ask her how it was, but it's gonna be totally awesome. So I just wanted to drop off the flyers. That's all.
Thank you, thank you. Item 10.1 was pulled from the agenda, but we did have a speaker on this, Ms. Cindy Parks. Ms. Cindy Parks, would you like to speak during non-agenda items on this item?
Not since it's been pulled, thank you.
So next we move on to item 10.2, given that 10.1 was pulled. Change order number 4 to the contract between Newark Unified School District and DL Falk Construction Incorporated.
So this item comes back to the board. It was on the consent calendar at the last meeting, but we got very late and it was pulled. So we brought it back under old business in case there were questions about it. There had been a question mentioned just because the total amount of this contract has now gone over the original bid by approximately 18%. A large portion of that was that large change order when we had to defer a big piece of the construction into the second fiscal year and the cost of reboarding it. This particular change order is all related to additional dry rot repair that was during the process of the work that was done in the later part of the summer. It comes to the board quite a bit late just because there was a lot of back and forth between the construction company and the construction management firm with regard to costs and really hammering out all the details of what needed to be in that change order. But all of this particular change order is related to things that were beyond the scope of the original contract, things that they uncovered after the foam was removed off the roofs or after the metal was removed off of the roofs or the metal roofs, as far as dry rot, other things that had to be repaired underneath it before we could re-seal the top of the school. So if the board has particular questions about any of the attachments that were in there with regard to the change orders, we do have Robert from Banner here, but that is what all of these change orders are related to.
Okay. Mr. Nguyen?
Yeah, I do have a couple questions. So, has work already been performed on these items?
Yes, these are items that occurred during the latter part of the summer. These were all the dry rot that was found in all the pictures that were attached to it.
So what happens if the board decides not to approve it?
Then I would anticipate we will be going into closed session to talk about anticipated litigation.
Okay. Then the second question, which may be more pertinent for Banner, is the change order is a result of unforeseen conditions? Is that the rationale?
That is correct, because when they pulled the roof off, we got extensive dry rot, especially in some of those walkway areas between buildings 700,
Right.
500, and 600.
So I'm looking at some of these images that were sent to us, and there were conditions that clearly are seen in regards to some of the beams that are in the underhang, or overhang, excuse me. So I'm curious as to why when the job was bidded out, that this wasn't considered a known situation. And I'm not referencing the roof, right? Because once you pull things off, I understand that. But there are images, your own images, or construction's own images here that show items that are visible.
I'll be glad to answer that.
Yeah.
Before we ever started the project, it went through reviewing and looking and analyzing the building. There are some exposed structures that show dry rot, and the rest of it goes underneath structures that we do not have the ability to look at until you pull it up. Dry rot can be very extensive, which it happened to be on this one, and so what we did in the bid process was to provide a cost per linear foot before we ever started the project on what it would take to take the dry rot out. As you can see on one of them, there were 700 linear feet of it, and so it was based on the square footages cost that we about, actually it was the same one we used in 2016.
Okay. Then I guess the follow-up question in regards to the change order is, once we've recognized that we've reached a 10% threshold, is it standard procedure to then request the board to extend that amount before we do any further work?
In the public contract code, and we also had discussion with your legal counsel, and I've had discussion with our legal counsel about it. In the contract code, it was broad brushed in there. It says that, it's a 10% of the change order or the alteration. And even in 2003, the Attorney General said that that was a singular note, which meant that each change order could not be over the 10%, but not accumulation of the change orders. Your legal counsel approved and agreed to that.
Wait, what? Really?
Yes, it is the legal opinion of the contract code.
Can we have that in writing, please?
I believe we actually do have it in writing,
Yeah,
yes.
March.
So what I'm hearing is that it's a singular change order that cannot exceed 10%, not the cumulative of the project price?
That's correct, according to your legal counsel and several others.
Well, I'm just saying that goes against everything that I know, and I could be wrong, but that seems
procedurally within
weird
our
to
own
me.
processes, we have established throughout the entirety of the construction program, at least since I've been here, and I don't know prior to my being here, but this is actually the only one we've ever had that crossed the 10%, but I had brought everything forward from the point at which we crossed 10% because that's always been my understanding, but a literal reading of the code, actually, it does say a change order of 10% or more. I have seen the opinion and I've read the paperwork behind it. That is literally what the code says, a change order of 10% or more.
Mr. Preciado?
I just wanted to echo Member Wynn's comments in terms of, I know we've been dealing with this company. Maybe there's an internal structure that we could do just because that's the legal framework and that's acceptable as a board. If we say that we don't want contracts to exceed a specific percentage for the cumulative and saying we're not going to move on that, because then, I mean, theoretically, you could pay 200%, 300% on any project, and there's justification. So I don't know if we need to do a board policy or how we can set up a structure so that we commit to an amount not to exceed this, and then that's the direction. So when we're negotiating contracts, like, it's not going to go over this amount. If it does, then we put it out to bid and we go with somebody else.
Well, when we do the leaseback procedure, we have that amount not to exceed. If the board will recall, when we awarded this contract, this one contract out of all the ones that we've done, we did not do through that method. We did a straight up design build traditional old-fashioned style, because at the time that we originally awarded this contract, there was a lot of controversy going on down in Fresno with regard to the leasebacks, and it was still a bit of an unsettled area. I would anticipate going forward, depending on what type of work we're doing, we will probably go back to that methodology because it does secure the prices much more consistently than what traditional design bid build does. But this is very typical of a design bid build project when you have a school that is as old as this one is going through its first major re-roofing, where they're digging into and underneath what was, because previously when it was re-roofed, it was just the foam was poured over top of everything. They didn't actually get down into what was in the sublayers. This is the first time we've gone into that level of the roof in doing the roof repair at this particular school. And we did have significant costs related to dry rot in all of the previous contracts. We were within the allocation, though, because it was the only one where we had to spread into a second summer, and we had to do all those additional costs related to the re-ramping up because of that initial delay that we had out of the DSA 2 summers ago when we didn't get the drawings back out until the end of July.
Perhaps you can make a request at the end of the meeting for us to staff to research and consider what you're asking.
That's right. Yeah, my point is just that we can't, to Member Wynn's
Well, my concern is that if the board has approved a threshold, it's our practice that we don't exceed 10% without pre-approval. What prevents the next project, whatever project it is, and our CM of that project approving work that we would not approve and exceeding the total amount that we budgeted for?
Well, that's part of what I have to be watching for during that whole process, which I do. That when we took that major change order number 1, and we did a complete tack on of that onto the project, that change order in its entirety went then into the cost. If we take that piece that already went and we look at the rest of the change orders, we're still under the 10%. That one huge one is the one that's really kind of throwing this entire project over. Now, since then, we've brought the other 3 change orders, but we've been accumulating up
That's still
quite a
technically a
bit.
change order, though. I mean, call it what you will. That's a change order to the original bid amount of the project, right?
Yes.
So, from my perspective, we've spent up to budget, and this is pretty emblematic of our district finances, right? We spent what we allocated to spend, and now we're spending $250,000 more without any authorization, other than the CM. Is that what I'm hearing? It was the construction manager's decision to spend that extra amount of money that the board did not approve or anticipate.
No, all of those had to come through the superintendent and/or myself as well to approve moving those forward, because we had roofs ripped off and we had dry rot we had to fix.
Who was at the construction meeting discussing with DL Falk the amount of work, the cost of the work, and whether to proceed with work or not?
All 3 of my team members.
So at that meeting, you made that decision to inform DL Falk to proceed with the work.
No, sir.
No?
What we did, we went through the whole process of what it costs per linear foot, talked about it, looked at the scale of things, brought the designer in, we looked at it, we calculated what it was going to cost, agreed to the cost, and then we came back and suggested that to the district. We do not make those decisions. We just make suggestions to the district on what we think is the best fit for the project at the time.
Thank you. So someone in the district, whether it's Superintendent Sanchez or Mr. Richards, made the call to expend that, or made the call to proceed with work, right?
Yeah, but we made the call to proceed with work because whenever we signed.
Based on the price that Vanner negotiated or gave you,
Right.
how
Well,
much
that
it would
was part of
cost?
the original contract price. For every, however many feet are found, it's this amount per linear foot. That was part of the original document. We just don't, when we bid it out, we don't know how many feet of dry rot we're going to find ahead of time.
So
The price is already built in, but this is adjusting for all the costs for how many feet we actually incurred.
So my issue is not necessarily the work that was done, because fixing dry rot and making sure the canopy is safe, that's a priority, right? My problem is that whether it's Vanner or one of you made the call to spend the money without the board's approval, which, up to 10%, you have free will to do what you like per our practices and per what I think is state law, but we're past that threshold and we made the call to expend that amount. I'm having a hard time reconciling that right now.
Is there a requirement that should have been brought to us for approval when it went over 10%?
The one that was over 10%, which was number 1, came to the board before we even allowed construction to restart for the second summer. And that was the one that we spent a whole lot of time negotiating, and we went through several meetings with the board, as well as with the contractor over that whole process. Yes, that one, we couldn't even let them restart the project until we had that approval within its scope.
Okay, so the issue is the multiple change orders can add up.
All of these other requests for additional pieces that have now been combined into what is now change order number 4. Same thing happened with change orders 2 and 3. We did not bring every single RFI to the board for conversation over every item. They did the work, they got it approved, they went forward, they fixed what they needed to fix, they bring forward all the invoices, and then we bring the total of what all gets combined into that change order to the board. That's what we did with change orders 2 and 3, and what we're proposing now with change order 4. Now, in these cases, none of these have been over 10. And absent what happened with change order 1, we still wouldn't be over 10. Change order 1 in of itself is the entirety of why we ever went over, because of that year delay. We haven't done anything really different in this process than what we've done on every other project up until now.
Ms. Crocker?
I'm hearing Mr. Nguyen say 2 different things, saying, number 1, I don't like the fact that we didn't were not informed it was going to go over 10%, because that was sort of our feeling that 10% was the total amount that you could have for a change order before it was brought back to us, regardless of what the legal thing was. That was our understanding of it. But the other thing that you said was that you felt that the bidding perhaps was not quite right, because you felt that they could have seen and anticipated more than they did. So
That's
that,
an
so
element
that
of
the
it, yeah.
initial, so you're saying the initial bid that came out was not accurate in terms of what the cost would be. I'm not sure we would have made any other decision. I mean, whether they were able to say it was going to be that much more or not. Because if you have dry rot, you have dry rot.
Sure.
If you have in the contract saying that there is the ability to price out whatever changes that have to be done or repairs have to be done based upon what you find, for me, that would cover it. So if they found dry rot that could not be seen, because dry rot's insidious, and with 55-year-old schools, buildings in California, you're going to have it.
Right.
There was a working knowledge that was there.
Yeah, and such, I think we're agreeing with the part where I'm tripping over is, let's say there's unforeseen conditions, and let's say at that time we've already reached our 10% threshold, right? And Vanner decides, you know, this needs another $500,000 worth of work because of the extensiveness of the dry rot. I think the proper procedure at that time would have been to come back to the board, bring it to the board and say, we have more work. This causes us to exceed the 10% threshold. However, it's needed work. Will you approve this? We approve it, then you proceed with work. That's how I understand it to operate. Now, you're telling me something completely different as far as 10% per order, which to me would be unfathomable, unbelievable. There's absolutely no way that's true. Wow.
Like I say, we talked to your legal counsel, and we've talked to our legal counsel, and their opinion is that it's written in a singular word, change order and alteration.
So then hypothetically, are you telling me in this $6 million project, you can submit an infinite amount of change orders as long as each change order doesn't exceed $600,000? Therefore, the $6 million project can become $250 million?
Let me back up. Once we get our suggestion, we suggest that to the district, then it's between Banner and the district to decide if that needs to happen. I want to make one thing very clear about this specific project. This project had a start and a stop, during which time there were not children, or students or staff in the room. Once we tore out, and most of this dry rot was underneath your metal canopies, and once we tore that out, there was really no way of going back and trying to do anything other than when school started, there was no way you could get in and out of the classrooms because of the length and abrasivity of all the dry rot that was underneath the metal.
Right, I understand that. I understand the need and the importance of the work. What I don't understand is the inability for you to come to the board and say, we need this work done, please approve this amount. That's the part that I'm hung up with.
Mr. Nguyen.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm taking too much time.
Can we move the agenda? Can we have a motion?
Was that yes or no on his question? Right. Was that yes or no that it's infinite number of change orders?
Based on the law that they're interpreting, it could be, this 6 million could be 250 million. I don't think that's true, honestly.
Let me offer a solution. I would suggest even though that may or may not be the law, and we need to clarify that, I would recommend we do a board policy change to make sure that it's explicit in our policy, so that we have a process defined for ourselves that we can follow, regardless of what the law is. It's not going to be in violation of the law, but it would be a step that we would take to ensure that happens.
I think that's already codified,
The practice has been to do it the way it's.
I think that's been codified as board practice and state law with that 10%. Yeah, I think this is an instance where, for some reason, we violated our own either board practices or violated our own state laws, and now we're, yeah.
Can we call for the question?
I believe it's true.
You'll make a motion? Ms. Crocker moves.
I'll second.
Mr. Preciado seconds. Please vote. Oh, there it goes. We have
Thank you.
five, one, two, three, four, five ayes, student board member voting in favor, and Mr. Rodriguez is not here, and one no, Mr. Nguyen.
So it's 4 ayes and 1 no.
Oh,
4 ayes
four,
and 1 no.
four ayes and one no. I'm having trouble seeing over the display. Okay, thank you.
No, I think for, hold on. So I think for the record, Ms. Sierra made a mistake in her voting, so I'll let her.
Still would be the same.
Yeah, it doesn't, but then for the record, yeah.
You want to change it? It's fine, I'll just
Do you want to change your preferential vote?
I was going to say, in the past, usually if you have a no vote, you get the opportunity to choose, but to explain, but we already know.
Yeah, you know my explanation. I think.
Yes, I think so.
I think we commit a fundamental flaw in this, and I just didn't feel right voting for it because yeah.
Because the hard part is the cost. If we say no, it's going to be all the legal fees that we have to pay and what we have to pay because the work is already done. Yeah.
Right. Okay, we move on to 10.3. This is the second reading on Board Policy Administrative Regulation 5145.3, non-discrimination harassment.
Yes. Good evening. This evening, we come forward with the second reading of Board Policy Anti-harassment. I do want to note, as we shared last time, thanking the staff for a cooperative process, and really, I'm very proud to recommend this approval. I want to thank Mr. Tommy Edwards and Ms. Amanda Yop and all of our students. Our students were very vocal. This is a way to respect all of our kids, and we come forward with this for your approval. Thank you.
Any discussion?
Long overdue.
Okay. Please vote.
Well, it needs a motion.
Oh, we need a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Mr. Nguyen votes to approve.
The ARNB.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll second.
Ms. Crocker seconds. Please vote. 5 ayes. Thank you. Next, we move on to 11.4, Board Policy Administrative Regulation and Exhibit 6163. Sorry, I've gone one. I'm on the wrong place. 10.4, second reading, Board Policy Administrative Regulation 5126, Awards for Achievement.
Good evening. We come forward this evening with the second reading of the awards policy. We took into account the suggested revisions and edits from the last time we met, and we come forward. I also met with staff at Newark Memorial High School so that we can really operationalize this from the district level and have their support and approval at the site level to determine awards for our graduating seniors.
I'll move to approve.
Mr. Preciado moves to approve.
Second.
Ms. Crocker seconds. Please vote. 5 ayes. Thank you. 10.4, Mr. Superintendent, would you please describe what we discussed regarding 10.4 board meeting structure and dates?
Sure. Let me pull up So what's in the packet is a kind of a first draft of resulting from some of the work in the board study session and board retreat we had recently, and just some conversations we've been having. And kind of the intent behind this is being able to code our board meetings and try to migrate more towards having the first meeting of the month be heavy on the business side, and the second meeting be heavy on work study sessions, workshops, and staff reports. One of the idea behind this from the board notes was really about spending more time inspecting what is really important, spending more time on academic achievement, progress monitoring, and the strategic imperatives. So this was a kind of a creation of myself and board president and member Preciado, just kind of trying to figure out how do we create some structures so that we have a more predictable way of how we're going to handle business, and that we're spending more time really discussing, largely it started from us wanting to spend more time discussing academic achievement, which is really the core work that we do here. So, but I would defer to board members that will help craft it as well.
Mr. Preciado?
Yes, I just want to say, I think that Mr. Nguyen has been pushing for this for a while in terms of having one kind of work, and then actually just one at all completely. But at least this way we can, the framework is we're moving forward with our vision collectively. So too many times we get caught up in looking at different pieces or trying to put out fires, but we need to really have a vision, a strategic plan that's mapped out, and hold ourselves accountable through the conversations and saying, this is really where we're thinking about the different programs, components, and aspects of the academic environment, or specifically our strategic imperatives, and how we're moving and having those conversations so that we have the time to actually discuss and really dive into the issues, and it's not just, hey, 5 minutes, we got to decide yes or no. This is having the conversation so that we can have be on the same page.
Ms. Crocker?
If you analyze it, you will find, if you analyze it, you will find that there are 5 of the 12 months in which there's only one meeting. Right. And I want to make sure that we have enough time to do what we need to do in terms of work. Summer sometimes is a time when it's hard to get people together, and things are not as busy in terms of what the board needs to do. So I would like to see placeholders, whether they're used or not, in terms of this. I think the summer would be a hard time because of the traditional time when people have their vacations, the end of school. But I think that for April and for November, December, if we had placeholders, because when I plan my schedule, I want to make sure that I am not out of town. And I think that I would rather say, oh, there's no board meeting, than to say there is. Because we have called special board meetings a number of times. So I would like to at least open the discussion with other people as to putting placeholders there for the months when there's only one, for a time for a meeting.
Are you talking about months outside of the summer?
Outside of the summer. I think the summer is going to have to stay the way it is because of the way the school district works and how people's vacations and what the workload is at that point.
Well, typically April is a conflict with spring break.
I understand that, but because there's a spring break does not mean the board cannot meet. And it may be a time when it may be a special meeting, because you're talking, the ones
staff,
during the
though,
school year
aren't you?
itself are all agreed.
But then we're requiring staff to be here during spring break when it's their time off.
Well, if it's a study session, I don't know that it's as important for staff to be there. I mean, I don't know. And I know you think that we can do all of our work in one meeting a month, and I'm not so sure that the past has allowed us to do that. Something always seems to come up that takes our time.
I think we may just need to be more efficient with doing our work.
That would be nice. Yeah. So I wanted to bring that up because I think that it's
I think we can interject meetings as we see that we need them. So I don't think this precludes that.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
I would like to, we're going to be asked to approve these dates beyond July 1st. So I would like to suggest that for myself, July 31st is a problem. And I know that there's a conflict with the city event the first Tuesday in August, but I really think it's important that we stay to our first and third Tuesdays. So I would recommend that we change that July 31st to the first Tuesday in August.
And have nothing in July.
And have nothing in July. I think traditionally we've always had this discussion around that end of July or the beginning of August. Mr. Preciado?
I think we had that discussion when we first setting up the calendar, was that the first Tuesday of the month, so National Night Out, it's a way for us to really support our community members and make sure that we were out in the community and didn't have a board meeting as part of that. So we had moved it to that July. That's my understanding of why we have
I know that's why we did it. I'm saying that for myself, it's a conflict, and I prefer we move it and stay with the first and third. I mean, there's always going to be something, and I'll probably take some criticism for this, but there's always going to be something that's going to interfere. We are having meetings on election night, and some of us are running for election. I mean, we have to, I think, stay true to our agenda, but that's my input. Mr. Sanchez?
I wanted to just remind, part of the other motivation behind this was to create time in the public eye for more transparency about big decisions that are coming up. The other function of this that we're looking for is there was a couple of drivers behind it. One was that we were trying to find time to have a retreat, which is difficult outside of the current structure. So this would allow for some retreat time within the current structure. That was one of the drivers. The other driver was that we would be able to have increased saturation time with things that we're discussing. So we're discussing things in a workshop setting before it's on the agenda, and then when it's on the agenda, there's not surprises for the community. So part of it was to try to get to more transparency, and I think that carving out more time is something that I definitely think is important. Whatever pattern that's predictable that the board wants to do. But I just wanted to remind you of those two elements of why we were really trying to nail this down.
So, I mean, I'd go along with the consensus of the board on the meeting on the 31st, so we can move this item forward.
I think in the past, we found we needed one there because there were things that we had to do legally because of the beginning of school and that type of thing, and we don't know what those things might be at this point.
Well, I guess I'm just asking about the
July 31st.
July 31st going to the first Tuesday.
That week might make a difference, I don't know.
Mr. Nguyen, do you have a thought?
I mean, as far as preference, I mean, 31st would be more preferable for me than the first week of August, if that matters.
Okay, then perhaps, Mr. Preciado, you'd like to make a motion to accept the dates as they are? Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Parks?
Patiently waiting. So first of all, I'd like to commend you for doing this. I know that it was the intent probably about 8 years ago that this take place, and it was done for a small amount of time. Maybe it was 10 years ago. It was quite a while ago that the agendas did reflect future items. I think that this is a great idea. I am wondering, there are some items listed on here, and I had put in a request in December for a detailed list, an update on the Fund 40, and then Mr. Nguyen tagged on to that at the end of the meeting and asked for an update on Fund 21 and 25 at the same time, and those requests are not reflected here. I'm just assuming that this is just a work in progress. And perhaps after hearing the last long discussion concerning Vanner, if you recall, Mr. Sands did mention at the last meeting that there is another change order coming. So where you just had that long debate about what you had in front of you, there's another one coming. So just looking forward to future items. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyway,
So I'm wondering, like, in terms of the framework, like, if we have a discussion that this is how we're moving forward, the only thing that I want to say is that if we have it as a study session, then we can't keep it open to say, okay, and we're going to add this item and then add this item that we have to in terms of business. So it's either coming to the understanding that this is all we're going to do as big picture planning piece, or then if we if we leave it open, then why even have the colors?
Yeah, and it could very easily revert to two business meetings. So
Which is what has happened in the past, but that doesn't mean that there aren't times when there are things that come up that need to be addressed, and you'd have to have a special meeting if you didn't do it at this meeting. So I think that to say no, nothing but just study session, I think is a negative thing for us
Well,
to do.
we have at times had a special meeting before the regular meeting,
Right,
and so, I think we can try to hold everyone's feet to the fire in terms of keeping that first meeting, the business meeting, and only bringing business items to that meeting, and then have special meetings for special circumstances, like perhaps our calendar, something like that, and have that be a special meeting before the board study session. So, can we move this item forward?
Yeah, I would just say then, to give, in terms of enough time, just changing the February 20th to a green one, so that we have, so if we're going to be discussing business at next meeting, then it would be, the 20th would be green, and then moving forward, so it'd be the 6th, the 20th, and the 6th of March would be green, and then follow along.
Well, what about the idea of adding a special meeting before the study session? So we keep the intent of the study session and then have the special meeting before for any emergency type business item that needs to be. That would, to me, that would keep that as a study session, and it would be making a strong statement that this is time we are going to be looking at long-term issues.
I mean, I have no issues moving the proposed calendar forward, because we've never had issues with adding or subtract, well, not necessarily subtracting, but adding additional meetings if necessary.
Right.
That hasn't been a problem previously, so.
Okay.
Just a note, October has 5 Tuesdays, I think.
So you're saying as a future,
So I'm saying,
potentially, yeah.
potentially.
Yep.
So that would sort of ease, might do the November, so it might mess around. I like keeping the 1st and the 3rd, I think it's smart, but keeping that in mind.
With the exception of the 31st.
Right, I think summer's a different kind of animal.
Oh, I see.
Can we have a motion?
Didn't you move?
No, I didn't move, but I can move to approve the structure as is, with the understanding that the agenda items for consideration, those will be in line with the strategic imperatives and big picture thinking. So it's not like this is set.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Nguyen seconds. Please vote. Five ayes. Thank you. Next, we move on to new business at 8:15. Resolution 2089 to reduce the number of certificated employees due to a reduction of particular kinds of services for the 2018-19 school year. And we have quite a few individuals wishing to speak to this issue, and so I would just please ask you to try to be succinct and try not to repeat too many times what other speakers have said. I think there may be as many as 20 in here, and if we, at 3 minutes apiece, that would take an hour. I think our board bylaws allow for us to after 30 minutes to suspend the public comment, and then I guess we can't, because that would only be for non-agenda items. Anyway, let's try to be as succinct as we can. I will call you up one at a time. Megan McMillan.
Superintendent, staff, members of the board. Like so many in attendance tonight, I have multiple roles in NUSD. I'm on the executive board for NTA. I'm a teacher, but most importantly, I'm a parent of 3 students at Snow Elementary. I choose to speak tonight as a parent because in my experience at NUSD over the last 13 years, it's the voices and concerns of parents that have the most lasting effect. I hope so tonight. As a product of it, I'm a believer in the power and worth of public education. Even in the dark times, 2007, 2008, 2009, I never wavered in the certainty that my children would attend public school, because the chief way to improve public school and to fully fund public school is by having kids attend public school. For me, this meant Newark, because if I don't want my kids to attend where I teach, why am I here? When my oldest started kindergarten in 2012, it was good. When my middle daughter started in 2013, it was all right. Each year after that, I've had an internal debate with myself. See, because in 2007, my idea of putting my kids into public school in Newark was this philosophical exercise. I had an infant. It wasn't affecting her education yet. But now, the debate is this: how much of a strain am I willing to put on my children's education for the sake of public education in Newark? How many punches am I willing to make my children roll with for the principle of the thing? My youngest is a firebrand, which is a really nice way of saying that she's that kid, the one who sees a limit and says, challenge accepted. And this layoff will punch her with a teacher that is so busy with a huge class that she can't shape her, she can just react to her. My middle daughter is a 4th grader with a 504 plan and a hearing loss. The layoffs punch her with a 5th grade classroom packed beyond capacity, punch her with less than 9 minutes a day of a teacher's attention. And for my oldest, junior high is looming large on that horizon. The layoffs proposed today punch her with a lack of social science classes, punch her with a lack of counseling, and that's a potential knockout blow for my daughter. I still believe in the power and worth of Newark schools, especially in the teachers. However, when the governing board and administration of the district offers layoffs as the chief solution to a budget problem, I begin to wonder how many punches are too many for my children to stay here. I don't think I'm alone in that question, and I want to be part of a better solution, so please, I challenge you to help me find one.
Carrie Knoop.
Good evening. Does the district have to cut? Yes, I totally agree with that. We have to. Did the board do everything in their power from a leadership perspective? No, in my opinion. The board sat on the sideline. They basically rubber stamped whatever the CBO put in front of them. The board had an opportunity to look at some programs. There are several programs that have been identified by citizens and also by advisory committees of cutting instead of cutting people. The board didn't want to know about it. I've seen meetings here where the CBO came with details and board members said, we don't want to hear details. We don't want to know about it. We just want to sign at the dotted line. That is not leadership. That's a big mistake. That's a real bad performance. Now we have a situation where all the cuts, or most of the cuts, are made with teachers. What about MOT? What about the district office? Again, the board should give direction to the district. It hasn't, in my opinion, it hasn't done that. It has sat at the sideline and says, I don't want to interfere, just give me what you want to cut and I sign at the dotted line. I think that's not doing your job. Thank you.
Next, Herender. Is that your first name?
Hi, I'm Harinder Gorhanen. I have two boys that go to Kennedy, and I've spoken before, I'm sure. I don't expect you to. I'm so disappointed at this point. I feel betrayed. We came to the budget reduction meetings, and we made it very clear that we didn't want cuts at school. We didn't want to lay off our teachers. You said, attend those meetings and your opinions will be considered, and yet you betrayed us. You're doing exactly what you said you weren't going to do. My 6-year-old did not mismanage the money. My 8-year-old didn't mismanage the money. You did. You did. Where is the leadership? Where is the accountability? My little boys have to now bear that the burden on their tiny little shoulders, and so are all the other children. That is so unfair. And I take full responsibility because I voted for you guys. So guess what? The votes are coming again, and you lost it all. I'm very, very disappointed in
Sam Matsumoto and then Pamela Manna will be next if she wants to get ready.
Hi, good evening, guys. My name is Sam Matsumoto. I am an educator at Newark Memorial High School. Tonight I'm here speaking as an individual. So this is my 6th year in Newark Unified School District, and this year, when I received my letter of intent form in early January, for the first time, I didn't readily check that box. Yes, I'm going to return next year as I had in years past. In years past, it was a really easy decision. I thought really long and hard. I'm not sure how many of you guys are fans of punk rock, but really the song that's playing in my head right now is The Clash, Should I Stay or Should I Go? And in speaking to my tenured colleagues that are also between 5 and 10 years in NUSD, where we're really looking, where are we going to finalize our careers? Do we move to Newark? Do we start our families in Newark? For a long time, that's really was the dream. Can I ever afford to buy a house in Newark? For the past few years, that was the goal. But really, it's changed a lot. I'm deeply torn. I'm really deeply torn. Some of my students are here tonight. They're the most important thing that's keeping me here in the district. But I've watched too many of the colleagues I respect leave. Last year, we had a mass exodus of our educators. And with these potential layoffs, some of my colleagues that won't have the luxury of that choice. I hope I will have that choice. But these layoffs are going to have staffing consequences beyond the 20 educators whose positions are going to be ripped. And for the students, I really hope that you guys vote to prevent another exodus. Thank you.
Thank you. Pamela, how do we spell your last name?
Manna, M-A-N-N-A-H.
Okay. Hi, Pamela.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Pamela Manna. I am a special education teacher at Birch Grove Intermediate School, and I'm here to speak as an individual and as a teacher. This evening, as with many of my other colleagues here tonight, I'm here to talk to you about the proposal for reduction in force. In looking over the past budget proposals and documents regarding our budget reductions, I have noticed the elimination of several unfilled positions already cut to reduce our budget deficit. What I did not see was the elimination of the 11 paraeducators that were cut from special education department this year and eliminated from our classrooms. Also, every year we as teachers fill out our commitment to stay. And I noticed that none of that was taken into account when coming to the board this evening with your proposal for reduction in force. You didn't take into account that natural attrition rate of people retiring and those that are ready to actually leave the district and look for something better because they cannot afford to stay in this district. What I also do not see were the proposals in there were the budget cuts to the administrative or the district office side of our budget demands. The community spoke loud and clear at our budget meetings to all of you, stating that these cuts should not come from the backs of our students, our schools, or our teachers. And yet your first response was to eliminate 20 more teachers. I have 3 questions for you. How many teachers could that $250,000 that you just spent in line item 10.2 of tonight's agenda could you have saved? Number 2, how many teachers can you save with those 11 paraeducators that you eliminated from our special education classrooms, leaving those special education teachers short-staffed? And number 3, if you have accounted for that money of those teachers and those aides, where is that in your line item budgets? Because it is not listed.
Next, I would like to invite Ms. Eileen Weeks, and following her will be Tommy Martin Edwards.
Good evening, Superintendent Sanchez, staff, and board members. My name is Eileen Weeks, and I've been teaching at Newark Unified School District for 15 years, first at Kennedy and now at Birch Grove Intermediate. I've also worked in the past as teacher on special assignment as the district science coordinator. I have worked with some fabulous teachers, many of who are here tonight with me, who also have many years of experience with our district. But this year, I'm happy to say that I'm being inspired by new teachers to our district at my site. These teachers have inspired myself and others to challenge ourselves in the way that we teach. These new teachers have led our staff through professional development on project-based learning. Our 3rd grade level team has already designed 3 project-based learning units this year in both science and social studies. Our students have worked on 20th century skills during these PBLs through researching, designing solutions to problems, and presenting to the community their findings through Google slide presentations, social media, and bulletin boards. These exciting projects have taught them about flooding in Newark. Currently, they're learning about the engineering design process, which we will be sharing with 2nd graders at BGP. These new programs have invigorated our team with this new style of learning. Without these new inspiring teachers helping us grow, we will not be a model of world-class education that develops unique abilities of every student, because we won't have the teachers to inspire and educate all students to achieve their full potential to be responsible, respectful, and productive citizens. In order to attract new students to our district, we must be offering these types of programs, in addition to moving forward with the next generation science standards, which I don't see happening at our district, at least at the elementary level, unless teachers, like those at my grade level, take NGSS on ourselves and create our own units. We have created 2 new NGSS units at BGI with the help of some of our new teachers. Please consider the importance of keeping the budget cuts far away from the classroom and away from our new invigorating teachers. Our community has spoken. Please put our students first. Thank you.
Mr. Martin Edwards, and after that, Abhi Opal.
I come here tonight to speak to you all about priorities and choices. Early this year, Chief Business Official Brian Richards told us that Newark Unified School District was in financial peril. He told the public that the school board has been masking a structural deficit with one-time funds. Shortly thereafter, the superintendent chose to hold public budget reduction sessions to solicit community input about the tough decisions ahead. We applauded him for including the community in this decision-making process and letting their voices be heard. Families and staff and community members made it abundantly clear: cuts must be made as far from the classroom and their students as possible. Mr. Sanchez was so kind to compile the community budget input to show a workable solution to our budget shortfall. And while the solution still affected classrooms slightly, it showed a commitment to follow the vision of the people we all work for, the Newark community. In this vision, Mr. Sanchez showed to the community that the district office would take a necessary and proportionally deeper cut than school-side instruction, a whole 10%. All of this, I now fear, was disingenuous. Since the dark picture Newark Unified was painted, Governor Brown chose to prioritize funding public education, giving Newark the funding to avoid the most painful of these cuts. Yet for the past month, the district has chosen to prioritize attempting to give a $36,000 raise to a member of executive cabinet, chosen not to make any cuts to the district office, chosen to showcase a new, recently repaired building as a site to move the district office to, after moving teachers and students out of there the year before, of course. If this were not enough, the district has chosen to build their new budget on the backs of their students, laying off teachers and counselors who see and serve our students more in a day than those in front of me do in the entire year. It's true that the teachers you're voting away in items 11.1, the resolution for the reduction in number of certificated employees, and item 13.3, the release of temporary certificated employees, are different situations. But it totals to 10% of our teaching staff leaving before a single resignation is given. That means we're nearly halfway to the massive exodus that we had last year before anyone chooses to leave. Please ask yourself, ask the people who are here tonight, and ask the people who are thinking about moving their families to Newark in the future. How might the proposed changes affect enrollment? If they increase enrollment, please vote aye. If they result in yet another decline in enrollment, you must vote no.
Hello, Abhi. How do you spell your last name?
UPPAL.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here to represent the Newark Memorial student body as the second class vice president. I'm here to inform you guys that the fundamental short-run philosophy of your solution to cut teachers, it makes sense. I mean, you're cutting costs to alleviate the deficit. But any long-run cost analysis will show that this is not an effective solution, because what you're essentially doing is you're cutting out teachers to increase our student-faculty ratio, and you're jam-packing these classrooms. What this is going to do, it's going to cause the voluntary departure of our most experienced, dependable, and respected teachers, and also, and also decrease funding due to the implications of student performance. Now, as we increase our student-faculty ratio at all levels, students are receiving less individualized support. This is very important, especially at the elementary school where 10 teachers are going to be cut, because you need to teach the fundamentals sometimes differently, because at the fundamental level, a one-size-fits-all lecture just does not work, and you need those fundamentals to teach those students to achieve at higher levels. And cutting teachers, it's just forcing larger classes, and when you force larger classes, you're making teachers do more work for the same pay or even less pay. So anybody who's worth their salt is going to get out of here, and they're going to go somewhere where they can work for better wages and in better conditions. And this is going to seriously damage the reputation of the district, as we're bringing in inexperienced teachers to handle larger classes who have to spend more time on discipline than learning. Now, what we want to do, I mean, I just saw the letter outside on the door. I mean, the reason we're receiving less funding is because student enrollment is going down. How do we bring more students into the district? We bring up our reputation. We bring better students, we make better students, we send them to great schools, we send them where people respect, right? We have 35% of our kids going to a four-year college. What's that? 35% going directly to a four-year college. The reason Mission San Jose is so respected, the reason Gunn is so respected, the reason Irvington is so respected is because they have a culture of success. And that is what we need to be formulating. And by cutting teachers, we are not cultivating a culture of success. We are not growing a tree of success, but instead we are slathering the roots. And the way we bring more money into the district is we bring our reputation up, so we attract more students. More attendance brings more money. Thank you.
Ryan McCarthy, followed by Diane Kataki.
So two things first. I can't follow that guy. Secondly, congratulations to all the teachers that are here, all the educators that are here. You're very great and you're speaking out. I've been here a couple times. Back in September, we had an issue at Kennedy with overages. The community came together, supported our school, and brought back status quo. But it put this budget issue in my radar. So I went to the budget planning meetings, and what I heard there was what I thought was a genuine interest in getting feedback, and more importantly, getting community buy-in to whatever cuts had to come. So we all felt the pain, we all know where it came from, we all know the decision-making that went into it. So, you know, we kind of glossed over how we could have prepared for the rainy day, but here's where we are now, and Mr. Sanchez asked the tough questions. What do we cut? What do we not cut? How do we make the difference up between what we need and how much money we have to work with? They're all good questions. But underlying all that, I think I've heard others talk about, was the classroom is sacrosanct. We're not going to touch the classrooms. And, you know, maybe I missed something. I didn't come to a couple meetings, but I haven't heard where, you know, we've done A through X in cuts to the max that we could, and now we're at, you know, Y and Z, the classroom, the counselors, special ed, and now we'll have to cut them. I think we skipped over A through X. You know, and that's what caused me and a couple others to show up a couple weeks ago talking about the counselors and, you know, cutting our counselors down to 2 for all the campuses. You heard how that's going to affect some of our kids. It's mission critical to some of our kids. And, you know, some of our kids have a lot of challenges and not so many blessings. And I thought about, you know, with 2 counselors, it's kind of like me calling my kids orthodontist and saying, when can we get them in? 6 weeks is their next appointment. Is that what our kids are going to face with their counselors? I hope not. So today we're millions in debt, and we're now talking about firing teachers, increasing class sizes, and from what I understand, our administration is the highest paid among the 8 closest school districts. Over 40% of our employees are admin, and that's comparable to Fremont Unified, where it's only 33%. But if we're cutting all these teachers and counselors, doesn't that increase the percentage of admins? And what's the logic there? How do you justify firing special ed teachers, firing counselors, cutting teachers, increasing our class size, if we haven't brought our numbers in with the communities around us? So you've had several months to think about it. It's been kind of disappointing. We challenge you to do your job and do it better than you have been. Thanks.
Following Ms. Kachaki will be Jacoby Williams and then Kathy Williams Robinson.
Hi, my name is Diana Kataki, and I'm a 3rd grade teacher at BGI. I'm here today to voice my concerns for the potential layoff of 20 certificated employees. This is my 6th year of teaching for NUSD, and I remember what it was like to be laid off. Luckily for me, I was able to be rehired, but I will never forget how being let go made me feel. I dedicated so much time to my grade level and my staff with all of my fresh ideas that I carried with me after my college experience, and I felt as though it wasn't quite enough. Now, 6 years later, I am not considered a brand new teacher, but I see the new members on our BGI staff who have the same spirit and enthusiasm that I had when I first started this job. Learning from their perspectives and advice gives me the motivation to be a better teacher. I believe there is always room for growth, and I myself have had moments of being stubborn and hesitant about trying new things, like doing a project-based learning unit. But with the support of a new hire, I was able to find the confidence to give it a go, and I am a better teacher for it. Board, I ask you not to underestimate the power that new teachers have in this district. They give new life and new perspectives on what it means to be a powerful and effective educator. Remember, there are other districts out there craving to have these amazing people working on their team. Fight for them and show them that they inspire and educate all students to achieve their full potential and be responsible, respectful, and productive citizens that create a world-class education that develops unique abilities of every student and the growth of NUSD. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacoby Williams.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jacoby Williams, and I'm an 8th grade student at Newark Junior High School. I've heard teachers say they're leaving, and I've heard other teachers say that others are leaving. But as a student, I don't think anyone should have to leave, or be laid off. For example, I have a certain teacher who is leaving next year because of unfair pay. But every day, this teacher pushes us to succeed and has motivated most of my classmates and I to be college-bound and brilliant students. He is a truly amazing teacher and mentor. This teacher has made me love the two subjects I dislike the most, social studies and English. But almost every teacher I've had in my 6-year experience here in Newark Unified School District has made school fun for me. There's a total of about 20 teachers and staff combined at my old elementary school, Schilling. So laying off 20 teachers is equivalent to closing down an entire school, giving about 450 students nowhere to go. I just really think no teacher should be laid off because of the simple fact that I have an average 30 kids in my classes. Laying off 30 teachers would make most classes jump from high 20s to 30s to low 40s. I already have a class in the low 40s, and our teacher has to worry about teaching 40 kids one thing when half of the kids don't understand, so she has to reteach it again and again. Also, I've heard we're getting rid of some of our counselors, which should not happen. We have about 1,850 kids at our high school, and most want to go to college. I don't think that 2 people should be responsible for helping 1,850 kids go to college. In your February 2nd letter to the community, you state that student enrollment has declined sharply as families have fled to distant communities where the cost of living is lower. That sounds like an excuse to me because there are more and more houses being built, and the people that are moving in aren't all single with no kids. They are shipping their kids out of the district because the board continues to mismanage money, not invest in staff development, and continues to make cuts that affect the quality of the education. Our teachers do not have the minimal resources to be able to compete with our neighboring districts, and you are considering cutting even more teachers? How about cutting from the top down and not the bottom up? Would you ever consider cutting the $235,000 you make every year, Superintendent Sanchez? Considering the lowest paid teacher is at $61,655 and the highest at step 25 would be $106,952. How long does it take a teacher to get to step 25? Every teacher at this district is an amazing teacher, no matter what they teach or if their students like them or not. They come out here every day and stand on their feet and move around and teach other people's kids for 7 hours. They have to listen to annoying and loud students every day. They have to deal with students who don't listen and disrespect them every day. But they are still here pushing through the stress because they need to make a living to feed their families and support their families, sometimes even just feed and support themselves.
Thank you, Jacoby. You can.
I'm on my last sentence.
Finish your last sentence.
All right. So instead of spending our money on stuff we don't need, we should spend money on the people we do need, our teachers.
Thank you. Thank you. Kathy William. Rob. Thank you. Kimberly McCarthy, followed by Lindsay Affleck.
Recently, I've been thinking about what is happening to our teachers and counselors and tried to imagine something similar happening in my own job. I'm a fitness instructor. I teach adults exercise, which I'll admit is far, far less challenging than teaching a classroom full of children. But I digress. My class size limit is 25. Why? Because we welcome everyone into my fitness studio. People with injuries, recent surgeries, chronic conditions, and disabilities, anyone and everyone is welcome to attend. Of course, I have to modify some of the exercises for these people, and not in the same way. I have to modify differently if someone has a back injury as opposed to a shoulder injury. Much in the same way, our teachers need to modify lessons or assignments for their students with special needs or issues. But not in the same way, of course, because all students have different abilities and need different modifications.
It is challenging but doable. At my work, our classes often have wait lists. Our wait lists can be as long as 15 people. Do you know how many times my boss has allowed more than 25 people into my studio? Never. Do you know why? Because after 25, I can't do my job effectively anymore. I can't teach more than 25 adults exercise, look out for the ones who need modifications, and make sure they're working to the best of their abilities while making sure everyone else stays on task and doesn't injure themselves. My boss can make a lot more money if she allowed more than 25 people into class, but she would never put her clients at risk. And she would never put her instructors in a position where they can't do their job correctly. In the beginning of the year, I was here trying to convince the district to pay our overage fees at Kennedy because our students were uprooted 3 weeks into the school year and thrown into newly created combo classes to deal with the overages at our school. I said the students were being placed into subpar classrooms. Superintendent Sanchez disagreed with me and said that Newark Unified doesn't have any subpar classrooms. Now, we do have some amazing teachers, and you guys know I love you all. But there is no way that anybody with a brain thinks that a classroom with 35 children is equal to a classroom with 25 children, because it's not. It is not equal. It is not the same. It is less. It is less because as class sizes go up, each student gets less and less of her teacher's attention. Less questions get answered. There is less time to check for comprehension. And in the end, the students learn less. The very definition of subpar is below an average level. Teacher layoffs mean increased class sizes, which means students learn less than they have in the past. It is exactly what I said. It is subpar. How come my boss, who's running a business, can understand that in order to make the most out of her business, she needs to put her clients above profit, but a school district that is supposed to be looking out in the best interests of these children, of their students, can't do the same thing? These children, these students are your clients. You treat them like commodities, like canned goods, to be stacked and shoved on a shelf or in a classroom. Laying off our teachers and counselors show you have no interest in doing what is best for your clients, your students, our children. Paying yourselves more than any other administration within the nearest 8 school districts, while paying our teachers the least and treating our children like canned goods is an extremely poor business model, one that will get you replaced at the next election or when your contract is up next year.
Lindsay Affleck.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Affleck, and I teach 5th grade at Birch Grove Intermediate. I'm here for 2 reasons tonight, counselors and teachers. Counselors. Last month, I watched several students speak about how junior high and high school counselors help them through school. I was especially moved when one of my former students spoke about the help she received from Ms. Heather Ryan. I'm also thankful to Ms. Ryan for giving every 8th grade class the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. I was fortunate enough to go on this trip when student member Van Rossum finished 8th grade in 2015. The teachers and Ms. Ryan made it such a memorable opportunity for these students. Without Ms. Ryan and teachers to inspire and educate all students to achieve their full potential and be responsible, respectful, and productive citizens, where will our NUSD students end up? Last year, I took in my 17-year-old half-brother. He was getting into a lot of trouble at home and at school in Yuba City. I enrolled him in Newark Memorial High School, and thanks to Mrs. Torres, she listened to his aspirations to become an Army Ranger and created a path that allowed him to finish his junior and senior year in 1 semester. He is now halfway through boot camp in the U.S. Army. Without Mrs. Torres to inspire and educate all students to achieve their full potential and be responsible, respectful, and productive citizens, where will our children be? Teachers. Last year I taught summer school. Our math academy was led by a Newark teacher. That same teacher just recently led a full day of math professional development. She is inspiring others through her passion and knowledge of math. If this board moves to eliminate certificated teachers, we may lose her and other valuable teachers. How will we be a model of world-class education that develops unique abilities of every student without teachers like her? Recently, our site, PD, has been focused on project-based learning. 2 of our newest teachers are leading the entire school around creating our own units. District PD at the opening of the school year was around writing curriculum. Again, 2 of our newest teachers helped to lead breakout sessions. These teachers are passionate, excited, and motivated, which has been contagious to the rest of our staff. These new teachers to the Fielder District are inspirational. If this board moves to eliminate certificated teachers, we may lose valuable teachers too. How will we be a model of world-class education that develops unique abilities of every student without teachers like them? That leaves me in a place of reflection. At the Welcome Back rally, Superintendent Sanchez told us not to gossip over the fence to our neighbors about NUSD, that we should speak positively and make NUSD a destination. As you can see, I do that. We have some great counselors and teachers that are doing wonderful things for this district. Legality of March 15th or not, community outreach meetings found that the community does not want cuts made to the classroom. Find somewhere higher to cut. I'd love to be able to say our district is a destination, but if this board moves to make cuts at the bottom and not at the top, we won't be a model of world-class education that develops unique abilities of every student, because we won't have the teachers to inspire and educate all students to achieve their full potential and be responsible, respectful, and productive citizens.
Thank you. Monica Wayne, followed by Catherine Metabo.
Good evening. I am Monica Wayne, and I have 3 children, one who graduated from Newark Memorial 2 years ago, and I have a senior and sophomore there right now. I also work at Fremont Unified as a 2nd grade teacher. I feel that you're giving a clear message to the community that you do not put education or your students as your #1 priority. Harassment and cyberbullying is a huge problem in our country, and teenage suicide is on the rise. 3 of 20 certificated employees are proposed to be cut are counselors. This is not the time to reduce the number of counselors in our district, and the fact that you're even considering this is appalling. We all know that these cuts mean that you're planning to increase class sizes. It's my understanding that you're okay with 29 students in each K-3 classroom and 35 students in each 4 through 12 classroom. I experienced a class size increase myself when the schools did not get the funding from the state. It was a drastic difference between 20 and 28 students. My colleagues and myself found that there were more distractions with 28 students. We were not able to do as many fun, hands-on activities, and it was very difficult to meet the individual and groups who needed more instruction. When Fremont reduced the class size to 24, I couldn't believe the difference 4 students could make. It's never in the best interest of students to increase class size, and research proves this. You claim you're $3.2 million in debt, yet the city of Newark is growing more than ever. 2,000 houses have been built or will be built within 5 years. The school district will receive $6,000 to $8,000 from each house. That is $12 million on the low end. This doesn't include 2 hotels being built right now, which you will receive 56 cents per square foot. There's also another hotel projected to be built in 1 year. It seems to me you have the money to keep these 20 positions. If you still need to make the cuts, then cut some of the 178 administrators that you have on staff and make it to a 2-1 ratio to teachers and administrators. The board, more than ever, needs to make Newark schools appealing to our community and for teachers. It's important to make Newark schools desirable to keep and attract qualified and excellent teachers. Parents should also feel confident to send their children to Newark schools. This is not the case right now. Many students are taking their kids to private schools. This is very apparent with the Patterson Ranch development. When Fremont Unified asked Patterson Ranch to pay a mitigation fees to help house the students from the development, Patterson Ranch refused. Fremont Unified spoke with all of you to discuss sending the Patterson Ranch students to Newark schools. When the developer heard this, they agreed to pay Fremont Unified. Why? They know people pay more in Fremont to get their children into Fremont schools. Parents know and are confident that their students are getting an excellent education. This is your time to change things. Do not vote to lay off 20 certificated employees. Let the community know that you hear them and you're willing to put students first. Let the community also know that we made the right decision to vote you in, and you are willing to make Newark schools appealing and comparable to neighboring school districts. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine Metabo, followed by Cesar Castillo.
Hello, my name is Catherine Metabo, and I have been a resident in Newark for almost 14 years. And I have 2 daughters, one in high school and one in junior high. So I have 4 questions for the board members to ponder about. So, as a member of the community, I'm wondering why aren't we sharing the burden of the mismanagement of the money from top to bottom? I was talking to my kids and I told them, if I'm on budget and if I fail to budget my stuff, I wouldn't be eating meat and potatoes, and then I'm just giving broth to my kids. Yet I'm the one who mismanaged. So my question to you, guys, each one of you, if you mismanaged, why isn't the cuts coming from top to bottom? Why are you punishing the children? All right, the second question, counselors. How do you expect 2 counselors to run the show for the whole school district? 2. It's kind of ridiculous, really. The third question, class sizes. I know it's like I'm singing the song again and again. The class sizes, huge or small. 2 students make a huge difference. I do volunteer. And that's when kids fall through the cracks. It's either you're caught to be taught or you fall through the cracks. I know as a parent how easy it is to fall through the cracks because I have a quiet child. So having 35 students or 40 students, I definitely know it's easy to fall through the cracks. When you guys are having your meetings, does anyone of you sound your ideas to each other and say, well, this is the idea we're having. Is it horrible or is it a good idea? All right, and the fourth questions I have for you is, with all these people who are here asking these questions, have you already made up your mind that you won't listen to what they are here for? Or you just decided, okay, they've talked, it's noise, and that's it? Thank you.
Cesar, is he here? Followed by Tony Doot.
Good evening, Superintendent Sanchez, members of the board. I stand here before you in a last-ditch effort to implore you to vote against Resolution 2089. I'd like to paraphrase the district's mission and say that your mission is to support students and to provide them with the best quality education possible. As beneficial as it would be to the district's finances to reduce expenses on employees, such actions do not support the welfare of its students. Personally, being an advanced student, I've received a great amount of assistance from my counselors regarding my college and career search. Many of my peers rely on counselors to advise them in their academic goals. Reducing Newark Memorial to a singular counselor is not fair to the student population, nor is it fair to the single counselor who has to run the school herself. We thrive when dedicated people guide us in this important stage of our lives, and it is my belief that student, administrator, and teacher morale will weaken should this resolution pass. This is also unfair to Newark Junior High students because they face an even larger transition to a more independent academic environment. Reducing history teachers, physical education coaches, and elementary school teachers affects the district at all levels. Your resolution title states that you plan to reduce particular kinds of services. These aren't services you're providing. These are essential things that every student needs to succeed in this district. And I guarantee you that the parents that stand behind me, at some point, they're going to take the kids out of this district because it no longer provides the essential things that their children need to thrive in this district. And I guarantee you that you will lose funding from the state when your enrollment drops, when your attendance drops, because students will be going to Fremont, they'll be going to New Haven, right? And they're going to be getting better education than they ever will experience here at Newark. I guarantee you that, members of the board. Therefore, I strongly implore the board to consider the words of not only myself, but of the other concerned members of the Newark Unified School District community. Working together, we can find a better solution to this issue. Thank you.
Following Mr. Doot will be Glynis Mason.
Good afternoon, good evening. It's been a long night. We need money. To bring more revenue, you have to think about the possibility of a city transfer tax. This is a tax imposed at the time of the sale of a property. Who pays that tax is negotiable. Could be the buyer, the seller, split it, however they want to work it. Most cities in the county have a transfer tax. Excuse me. And they range from $1.10 per thousand to all the way up to $13 per thousand. As a homeowner, I know that it sounds like I'm shooting myself in the foot, but some things are more important, and nothing is more important than our children and our grandchildren's education. Just to give you an idea of how much money I'm talking about, In 2017, 450 homes were sold in Newark, from as low as just under $350,000 up to $1.47 million, with a grand total of just over $351 million. Now, 1% of that, but I think you all can figure it out, unless you have laid off all the people in the classroom.
Thank you, Tony. Glynis?
I don't think I'm the only one that feels that it's unreasonable to have 10 pairs of eyes on the speaker at all when they're speaking. I'm not the only one. I'm hearing comments.
Yeah, I mean, just a matter of respect, if you guys can look at the speaker, especially the students when they're speaking to you, it's important.
Ms. Mason?
So my speech is a little more formal because I wrote it down, and so it's going to be a little bit repetitive, but I'll try to be efficient. Board members, Superintendent Sanchez, district staff, administrators, teachers, families, and students. Can teachers raise their hands so we know how many teachers are here? Whoa, look at you guys. Good evening. I'm Glynis Mason, as you know. I'm a special education teacher in Newark Unified School District. There are some of my colleagues here representing us in NTA, and just to be here to speak on behalf of the students and teachers. So I'm here to speak against the RIF, reduction in force, which also is kind of ironic because it also stands for reading is fundamental. Kind of funny, huh? That's kind of funny. That's kind of ironic. So I do recognize that our district is in a very challenging financial situation. I try to watch all the board meetings because I live about an hour away in Oakland, but I commute here every day, and I work hard every day for special education students. At night, I go home and do my IEPs like many of my teachers do here. And even then, that's just special ed. And then gen ed, I ask them for input on the students at 10 o'clock at night, and they still give me input on the students. They're amazing. They really are amazing. But I know we're in dire financial straits, and I want to ask the board and senior staff to further sharpen your focus, deepen your reflection when considering areas for expense reduction. Sharpen your pencil and reflect on what you're actually doing. While each of the groups gathered here and represented tonight are all dedicated to education of the students, I commend the board, I commend the superintendent, I commend senior staff, teachers, parents, students. We're all here for the same reason, to educate the students. But the community has unequivocally voiced their desire to minimize the reductions of those who impact students most, and those people are teachers. From gen ed teachers to RSP, from science specialists to paraprofessionals, from K-6 to high school to counselors, these are the people who work day in and day out, tirelessly with students, bringing to bear all that they have to provide a world-class education. So reflecting on the motto, which many people have shared again, begs the question, how can we protect the resource that is so vital to our students' education? Teachers. Finally, I ask you, board, and Superintendent Sanchez, senior staff who handles our numbers, reflect as well. Again, review the line items of the budget. Search for expense cuts that impact our students the least and limit reduction in teachers. In addition to searching the budget, search your hearts. Listen to your conscience. Follow the directive of the community voice. And finally, minimize the impact to teachers who are going above and beyond each day to fulfill the mission. And you can read it again, although it's already been stated a couple of times. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Karen Chapman, followed by Mavis Stone. I'm not sure about the first name. Karen.
Hi, I'm Mavis Dunn, and I'm currently a junior at Newark Memorial High School. I may be a familiar face for some of you guys. So right now, I'm very concerned about not just the well-being of the counselors and the teachers, but also my underclassmen and the students currently in the junior high and at the elementary schools. So before I start, let me just put this out there. Last year, I almost transferred to American High School in Fremont. My parents almost moved, and I also had a few friends who were planning on moving over to the Fremont district as well. And I think that should be a fair sign that many good students in the future who will be following after me will probably also have the same idea. Their parents will also probably have the same idea. And I will also note that there are some parents, including mine, who are very upset with the way how the financial management of the district is currently going. When I first started out in high school during my freshman year, I found that I was heavily dependent on my counselors, especially Mr. Luna and Mrs. Torres. Beginning high school, I was first interested in the medical field, and I was pursuing oncology research. And Mrs. Torres, she was very knowledgeable about different programs. She talked about the dual program at Brown University, where you could do both your undergraduate studies and your medical studies as well. And Mr. Luna, he also helped me take classes at the Learning College during the summer. And because I was a freshman, I wasn't eligible to take these college courses, and it wasn't unless he was able to write me this letter of recommendation and actually speak to the college that I was able to take these courses. And there are other students here as well, including like Ubby, Emmanuel Franco, Stephanie Hong. Those are some of my upperclassmen, sorry. There are some of my upperclassmen who also took courses during the summer. And right now they're taking courses during the school year. And without the counselors there to guide us, the following underclassmen are not going to be able to pursue this route. Right now I'm interested in astrophysics. Had I not taken pre-calc during the summer of my freshman year, I wouldn't be able to take multivariable calculus during my senior year, during my fall semester. And this is very detrimental for future students, because what if they want to pursue something in the STEM field? If you have less teachers and larger class sizes, and if you lose more good teachers like Mr. Liang, who I will say has thankfully come tonight, okay? When the district poorly manages their teachers and they do not show them the recognition that they deserve, and they do not teach, and if they do not provide students with the education that they need and that their parents are expecting, good teachers like him are going to leave. And the enrichment in STEM that we need as students is only going to decline. We cannot compete with other schools like Fremont if we are not able to enrich ourselves in STEM, and if we aren't able to receive the assistance from our counselors that allow us to continue pursuing these endeavors. So unless you really want to hurt the students and only cause them to not go to college, I feel that this would be a very heavy decision that you guys will be very responsible for.
Karen Chapman? She left? Diane Bonbright?
Superintendent, board, and staff, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak. However, I'm very passionate about this. I have moved in 1985. I put 2 kids through this district when our district was in good shape. My daughter graduated in 99 and my son graduated in 2001. I'm now on my grandchildren. My grandson's an 8th grader at the junior high, and my granddaughter is a 4th grader at Lincoln. She's in a combo class, and she comes home and says, well, our social studies can't get done in class, so we've got a lot more homework now. So we go from just a couple pages to a lot of pages. Now, this is because we're already at 31 students in a combo class, expecting our teachers to get everything in that they need to get in. My granddaughter loves the new math that we're testing. Her teacher is one of the ones that's doing the testing. She said that she actually really enjoys the math. She's a math and science person. But we went to the budget meetings and we were told that we would look at furlough days, we would look at staff salary cuts, we would look at everything but cutting our teachers. If we increase our class sizes any further, our students will not have good test scores. They won't. Our test scores are going to go in the toilet, and we're not going to be able to attract anybody. And I am one of the ones who's on the fence of moving to Fremont. I have the ability to do it, and I just might do it to get my grandchildren decent education. Board, superintendent, wake up. We have a salary increase that's been tabled that is my budget at our pals, that we are covering in expenses that the district already doesn't cover. You don't provide buses for field trips. We do that. You don't provide the teachers with enough of the classroom supplies. We do that. You know, we have to give a $40 or higher, depending upon the grade that your student is, or we have to go out and buy $150 worth of material for our kids to start the school year out with, because we have to provide copy paper and everything else that you don't supply. Now, we're okay with all of this, but we're not okay with losing teachers and raising class sizes. Furlough days. My husband's company kept their hourly people working, and their people who made the most money took a 20% or 25% pay cut, depending upon where their pay scale was. Each and every person gave a little. But I'm sorry to hear that our administration staff is higher paid than Fremont, which a much better district, is appalling. Please put our students first. That's where it's at. I'm on LCAP. I was on LCAP last year. I learned we're supposed to have snacks for the kids with free lunches after school and supper available. Could anybody tell me where it is?
Thank you. Noel Duke, followed by Laura Knoop.
Didn't hear the name?
Noel Dupe? Doot, I'm sorry. Noel Doot. Oh, of course I know who you are. I'm sorry.
I have lived in Newark for 39 years. I've been a paraeducator for NUSD for 24 years. Our children went through Newark schools, and we have grandchildren now attending Newark schools. Oh boy. This board would like the community to tout the benefits of education in Newark's public schools. With so many new homes being built, that seems like an ideal opportunity to enroll many new students. However, a level of mistrust from the community persists. A $3.2 million deficit did not happen overnight. Officials talk about how difficult these decisions are. How difficult was it to make a decision to convert Milani and Bunker schools while enrollment was already declining and budgets were already impacted? The deer in the headlights mentality no longer works for this community. Corporate America may subscribe, to cutting from the bottom as being the answer. We know that does little for morale and even less for productivity. But that is exactly what this board proposes. So far, emphasis has been placed on cutting classified employees and increasing class size. Now it has turned to cutting credentialed staff. How in the world can one justify offering any administrator any raise at this time? It is unconscionable. What, if any, administrative positions will be eliminated as well? I have yet to see any of the more creative approaches, such as a city district house sales tax Hayward uses, and many other counties, which would be a much easier sell than a parcel tax. This district continues to provide elective training and conferences for staff, as well as ordering new curriculum. These, along with other services, are what my folks called discretionary funds. In times of tightening budgets and true limited spending, we should look at suspending non-essential services and supplies. That would include any new building projects, clinics, retreats, assemblies, complimentary food service, celebrations, or festivals down to the last banner. It should not include putting educators out of a job. Again, our priorities must be people over things. Only then can such an offering of reasonable, balanced, and compassionate spending curtailment impress and entice our community in order to brag about our district and the manner in which business is conducted.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura Knoop, and I'm the Social Science Department Chair at Newark Memorial High School. Thank you for having me.
So this weekend, it was a little bit of a surprise. On Friday, I heard that there were going to be 20 layoffs in the district, and I was like, rolled my eyes, here we go again. It's negotiation time, that's what happens. And then on Saturday, I got notification that 3 of the teachers who would be laid off were social science teachers, and I kind of went, how in the world is that possible? I currently have a district of 9 teachers, a department of 9 teachers, and 3 of the people working in my department are on temporary contracts or substitute teachers. So there's 3 people who are not going to be rehired just based on temporary contract situations. So now you're telling me there's going to be 3 additional teachers on top of that who are going to be cut. So then my question is, I'm the department chair of the high school. If there was some big crisis in staffing in the social sciences, why has no one talked to me about it? You know what businesses do? They try to solve problems. So if you have an overstaffing, then you might say, you know what, these teachers are important to us. Perhaps we can find a way to keep them by looking, maybe they have other credentials. Has anyone asked? Well, no. Are there any other jobs that perhaps people can teach outside their credential area? Has anyone looked into that? No, because we don't have the discussion. It's important to have the discussion before you just put people's lives on the line. I have young teachers in my department who are outstanding. You guys have heard about them. They are our coaches, and they run our link programs, and they run our journalism programs, and they do all kinds of stuff that won't get done if they're not here. But it doesn't seem to matter. This is the stuff that's important to our students. They don't want to come to school if they don't have that stuff. We're great teachers and all, but they really come for the other stuff, right? On top of that, the social science department, I'm speaking for them, feels a little bit neglected and disrespected by this district. Throughout this year, we've had an unmanned classroom. We have had the same substitute in the classroom for the entire year. My dear friend Charles Greer died, but he died at Thanksgiving, and this district refused to replace him. We have had a person who has a math background being a substitute teacher. I don't even think it's legal, but whatever, we'll deal with that later. We have in our same department, we are the only department that gets 0 support for our special education push-in program. So our students have been suffering and our teachers have been suffering because the district, when they created the program, then pulled all of the paras who were supposed to go in and help these kids, and they're not being helped. That's the second thing we've been disrespected. The third thing we've been disrespected on is our textbooks. My second language students don't get to take textbooks home. Technically, we check them out to them, but because they're falling into pieces and there's not a complete textbook for them to carry back and forth to school, they have to leave them in my classroom. And when this was addressed with the district said, well, we are not going to buy any new textbooks because next year we're having a pilot program for social science. Surprise to me, because I'm the social science department chair. You would think I would know if we were piloting a program, but we're not talking to each other. Maybe we should talk.
Sierra, it's your turn.
I am speaking for the student body. Thank goodness I was the type of student that would stay after school for hours and bug my teachers nonstop with questions until I finally understood all of my homework. I got that one-on-one time with my teachers that I wouldn't get during the school day because there was just too many other students that I knew needed more help than me. Although not many students are like this. For instance, my brother. He is currently in 5th grade with Miss Affleck, the same teacher who helped me every day after school. She was actually a teacher that got pink slipped almost every year, and to this day, still one of my most influential teachers I've ever had. I never thought my brother would have this opportunity to be taught by someone so passionate like her since she was always gone. Thank goodness she didn't give up on coming back. But unlike me, my brother is extremely shy and a timid boy who doesn't feel comfortable asking for help. He will come home and have breakdowns because he just doesn't understand some things and he doesn't know how to ask for help during school. I can imagine he is not the only student this way. I have seen this exact same characteristics within my peers for years. Thank goodness we got him an IEP where he can get that one-on-one help with a teacher that he doesn't get within a classroom. Students are falling behind and struggling because there are almost 30 other students who also need help and attention where there is only one teacher in the room. How do you expect students to thrive within a bigger class sizes if they're already struggling getting that one-on-one time that they need? Once again, thank goodness I am the type of student that started planning every single class I was going to take starting in elementary school throughout senior year. So I have everything planned out, make sure I get the credits I need, and take the tests I need in order to get into college. Starting in junior high, I practically lived within Miss Ryan's office, asking her about anything and everything in the world that I could possibly need to know. She would always tell me I need to take a step back and breathe, but I just wanted to make sure that I was prepared because I knew that was the only way I was going to get into college is by initiating the process myself. But I didn't stop there. Once I got to Newark Memorial, over the past 3 years, my relationship with the counselors has been very different. I have made maybe a total of 4 meetings with the counselors. I have found it almost impossible to schedule meetings or let alone get responses to my emails requesting them. This is a common issue many students have brought up to me. Already with the 4 of our counselors, it is already hard for one student to build a one-on-one relationship with our counselors. How do you expect us to do this with 1 or 2? But once again, thank goodness, I'm the type of kid that didn't stop at these dead ends. When administrators and teachers bugged them endlessly, I had bugged administrators and teachers endlessly until I got the help I needed in order to plan it out. I'm sorry, I have a lot more to say. And thank goodness I started looking at colleges in elementary school when I noticed that the ones I'm looking at require an SAT with an essay, including single subject SAT tests, which I had no idea what it meant or how I schedule them or when I take it, or I couldn't even get a response to an email, let alone schedule a meeting. So how am I expected to do all this in order to even apply for college if our counselors are already booked like crazy with other students that at my school that need more help or even more attention than I do? But thank goodness I was able to figure it out myself. If this is our real life situation as high school students right now with 4 counselors, how do you expect this to be with only 1 counselor? Additionally, I have recently come to learn that many colleges I am applying to require specifically for my counselor to write a letter of recommendation for me to be admitted. How the heck am I supposed to get a non-generic, full-hearted letter for college if my counselor doesn't even know who I am? Let alone if there is only going to be 1 counselor for almost $2,000 student body. Let me remind you, not all students are like me. Many of them didn't realize they're supposed to be taking the SAT or when it is taking place, getting the credits or classes they need, building these strong relationships so they can figure out their path to college. The counselors are the ones building up these students, making sure they can even apply to college. They are the lifeline for our students. It would be catastrophic to cut this lifeline for the students of Newark.
And it's hard to...
I had to.
Thank you. I didn't have the heart to cut you off.
This is just, so many students have come up to me, and this is, I'm going to start crying. You can't.
Thank you. Okay, well, thanks, everybody. Board? Ms. Crocker?
It's a very difficult thing to be in a situation where you have to make hard decisions. The board has a series of legal requirements to leave our options open. We are voting on this to allow us to leave our options open. I've listened to you. I would like to have you listen to me, okay? It is a very difficult thing to make choices between 2 good things. But that's what you hired us for, and that's what we're going to have to do.
Thank you, Ms. Crocker.
Yeah, we got to be careful. Our students are
Mr. Wynn?
leaders of this country.
Mr. Wynn?
I have a couple of technical questions. So the first one was at the December board meeting, I think it was I who requested that we accelerate the timeline of negotiations so that if we're able to negotiate with our bargaining units, that perhaps we can mitigate some of the impact and potential layoffs. So I guess the first question is, what is that current status? Obviously, without revealing the nuances of negotiations and not violating, fair negotiation practice and whatnot. But because when we left the December meeting, I think Superintendent Sanchez committed to accelerate, start negotiations so that because if there are items that were negotiated, then obviously this would mitigate the numbers that would be impacted by the rift, right? So I'll take that question first, and then I'll follow up with another one. Go ahead, sir.
So we began negotiations.
Could you put your speaker on, please?
We began negotiations on the 24th of January. We resumed negotiations on the 13th of February, so a week from today. And right now we are still on the first article, and we're still in the preliminary stages. So nothing's been finalized at this time.
So if this resolution passes, this is an instrument that we submit to the county, and let's say between now or even up until March 15th, or past March 15th, up until whatever timeline that is permitted for us to rescind, is there a potential to rescind any or all of these RIFs pending negotiations?
Depending on the outcome of negotiations, there is that potential to rescind any or all of these positions.
Okay. Then my second question, not necessarily follow-up, is, with the 20 positions that are listed, 2 of them are administrative and the others are counselors, and we've all seen the list, right? So after we account for attrition, whether it's retirement, leaves, et cetera, do we have a number as far as how many actual staff members who have jobs who will actually be laid off?
No, it's too early at this time to make that prediction.
Got it.
How could that be?
Just, Mr. Preciado, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, so for me, in terms of the, there's a technical process. So is this, I don't understand, I know there's the March 15th deadline. Is this the first step that's required? And in terms of the timeline, it has to be by today or by the end of the month, or how does that work?
This is the first in the process of procedures that need to occur in a RIF process before March 15th. So again, this is the legalities being satisfied.
And in terms of the timeline, what is the timeline? Like,
Well, March 15 is the ultimate time.
no, I mean in terms of this beginning process.
We would have to, the board would need to ratify this tonight, to pass the resolution tonight, in order for the process to continue. There's a legal process that needs to be satisfied and procedures need to take place. You can't just notice people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I guess a lot of what has been said, I can't really add to. I know the superintendent's message kind of painted the picture of the difficult time we're having with our finances, and with the county coming in and demanding that we make cuts, and with 84 to 89% of our employees, our expenses in our employee salaries, it's a very difficult decision. It's almost impossible to not have this touch our employees in a way. But I think some of the questions Mr. Nguyen asked and Mr. Preciado will lead to hopefully an end result that will not be as stark as the legal requirement that we have before us today. If there's no other discussion, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move.
Ms. Crocker.
Acceptance of 11.1.
Ms. Crocker moves. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Preciado, seconds. Please vote. Five ayes. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot to hit the right button.
Yeah, we need to say point.
Next, it's four ayes. My display showed five. By the time I hit the button to actually display it showed four. So, okay. We move on now to 11.2, criteria for determining the order of seniority for those employees with the same date of first paid service.
Uh, 11.2.
11.2. It's 11.2. 11.2.
Sure.
Yes, Madam President. Resolution 2088 is presented to determine tie-breaking criteria for those certificated employees with the same date of first paid service in the district. In the event of certificated layoffs, this criteria will be used to establish the order of layoffs for those in the same seniority date. And again, this is part of the legalities of the process.
Right. I move acceptance of 11.2.
Ms. Crocker moves acceptance of 11.2. Mr. Nguyen seconds. Please vote. Five ayes. Next, we move on to 11.3, the resolution 2090, full and fair funding of California public schools. Mr. Sanchez, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, this item is really ironically at the core of the dilemma we're having in our district. And this is a CSBA resolution, let me pull it up here, that really speaks to the lack of and continuous underfunding of public education in the state of California in K-12. And I think that being that we're still ranked 41st in per pupil funding in the nation, it just compounds the problem that we're seeing here and that we're suffering through at this point. But I think the resolution does say clearly to the next governor of California that this is something that needs attention. I know that Alameda County superintendents have also drafted a letter and just really trying to bring attention to this serious underfunding of public ed in the state of California.
Thank you. May I please have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Mr. Preciado moves.
I'll second.
Mr. Nguyen seconds. Please vote. Five ayes. I would ask that this vote be, that CSBA be notified of this vote. They had asked.
Send it to them as soon as it's
Thank you. Okay. Next, we move on to a first reading, I believe, of the board policy and AR and exhibit for the student use of technology. Ms. Salinas?
Yes, good evening. This evening, we bring forward for our first reading our updated board policy. This is part of our efforts to update all of our board policies. This board policy 6163.4, also with its AR and exhibit, aligns our district with up-to-date information about how to keep students safe and through the acceptable use of technology. I do want to note that many of our school sites are implementing school-wide assemblies to teach students about the acceptable use. We will continue that effort for next year and at the end of this year. But I also want to point out that this will be included in our student handbook so that our students are aware of it along with our parents, which will be a signed release that they have knowledge of this updated policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Any board comments or input? Okay, this will be brought back for second reading and for action at the next meeting. Who would like to make a motion? We're just going to move it on. You're right.
Discussion.
Discussion only. Okay, next we move on to 11.5. We have a speaker on this topic. It's the board policy and AR for volunteer assistance. Mr. Knoop? Okay. Ms. Parks?
First of all, I'm a little baffled on why this is new business when it was on the agenda before. First of all, I want to say that I appreciate the effort that went into the revision because this is quite a bit different than what was originally here. I felt there was far too many restrictions placed on the volunteers. Then this definitely is somewhat of a compromise. However, there are a few things that I would like for you to note. On the bottom of page 2 in the green section, it refers to board policy and administrative regulation. That is this is just a minor thing. The regulation should be capitalized. The end of that section does refer to a uniform complaint process, and I'm a little baffled. I did mention this previously as to why this would be considered a uniform complaint process if you are denied. And again, if you're going to use the uniform complaint, you have to reference it as what you do normally, and that's not been done. On page 3, in the blue section, this references from CSBA that the next section is concerning student activity program. The red section does also reference that it is a student activity program. The PTA is not a student activity program, which has been inserted into this, and you are quoting an ed code section. It would be no different than Sergeant Sandoval coming to enforce something from the penal code and him adding something to it. You do not have that prerogative to add to the education code and quote the education code. So the PTA does not belong in that section. Number 4, I'm sorry, I am in the AR, I'm sorry, Dr. Wong. Then on page 4, in the section, the red section says upon initial volunteer assignment. Again, it's a volunteer assignment, yet the reference just below that is regarding health examinations, and these health examinations are for your employees. The section on the very bottom, it says the superintendent designee may exempt from the tuberculosis risk assessment. However, it is not the superintendent that has the right to do that. Education code, which is quoted 49406, is the board that has the right to do that. The section in blue below, the AAR that's quoted there is 5148.2. It doesn't even exist in your policy. You did not include that in your policy. And maybe you should, because you do have an after-school program. Page 5, number 2, tuberculosis assessment. The proper terminology for the form is the tuberculosis risk assessment. Number 3, I would imagine that your human resource department, the D should be capitalized, a little grammar again there too. The bottom number 3, under the clearance of Megan law or fingerprinting, the last item in the first bullets says the day field trips. I would imagine that you are not seeking to provide only Megan Law for day field trips for a person going in a car. I would hope that that would only be the bus where they're being supervised by the teacher. And finally, at the top of page 6, it says clubs and activities, and then it says the weekly scheduled classroom teacher, that those people are subject to the DOJ and FBI and the TB. Why would someone who is in the classroom weekly being supervised by one of your certificated teachers required to undergo such restrictions? And again, I would like to get the answer to just for the uniform complaint, why it would be your uniform complaint worthy. I would also like to know why the weekly classroom helpers would be responsible for undergoing all of those items. Oh, I'm sorry, and I did have one more. The parent-teacher organization, how you can insert that in that section.
I can see what you're looking at. I'm not seeing any of this.
Can we do that?
Yeah, I believe you are free to answer her questions if you'd like.
I'm not sure we're compatible.
Well, I have the one that says February 6th.
Well, I would hope that if Ms. Parks doesn't mind, that Ms. Parks carries this offline with our Human Resources Assistant Superintendent.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Are there other comments?
Yes, Ms. Matsumoto.
Hi. I didn't read it as in, hi, I'm Sam Matsumoto. I teach at Newark Memorial High School, and I did speak to the board last time when this agenda item came up, so I just wanted to say thank you for the revisions and kind of listening to the community with that. As someone who plans a lot of field trips, I think it's a lot more reasonable. I didn't look at it in such detail on my really exciting Friday night going through the board agenda attachments. So thank you for the work you put into it. I am still concerned about the financial burden on the families, and I believe Mr. Preciado spoke to maybe partnering with Newark Police Department or some way to streamline that process to really encourage the volunteers to come into the district. So thank you for your work on that.
Thank you. Ms. Crocker, do you have it? Okay, thank you. Ms. Crocker?
I just want to say that I'm delighted that we're addressing this issue. I think that volunteers in the classrooms are terribly important, but also the health of the students and the teacher is important. And I know that if you have people that are in there that may have tuberculosis and they are carrying it versus showing it, it can impact people in a very dramatic way. I am concerned also about the cost, and I would like to ask staff if they can figure out some way that we could streamline the process so that the fingerprinting can be done quickly, because if you're talking about the beginning of the school year, people can't get into the classroom until the work has been done. But I think that they need to be screened. I think they need to be screened fingerprint-wise and tuberculosis-wise. And so I think that the expectations of volunteers to think that they're going to go in the classroom right away if they've not been cleared is unrealistic, and I think that's something the teachers have to let them know, and the administrations at the site have to let them know. I think they'll clear up the fine points, and I'm not concerned about that, but I like the essence of what it is. And if we can have some sort of system so that we can get this done. I don't know what it costs to be fingerprinted, because it's been a long time since I've had to do that.
About 50 to 90.
Yeah, and so I'm wondering a location where this can be done. I don't know what the city does, whether they have access to faster fingerprinting. Pardon me? In Alameda? So people have to go to Alameda to do it. So for the city,
So I can share. So
Okay, good.
So our school district does not have our own fingerprinting machine, and so because our school district does not have that expense, what our employees do, and anyone who is fingerprinted, they can go to any place to be fingerprinted, but we have the paperwork so that we get Department of Justice or FBI would give us, if there is ever, hopefully not, a hit on fingerprints, why we can't use folks who perhaps are fingerprinted in a neighboring district or at their own work is because we don't have access to that information if there is some kind of a blip or a hit on fingerprints. So unfortunately, we would have to have them fingerprinted at mailboxes, et cetera, or wherever it is, but giving us the access to the information from the DOJ or the FBI.
What does that cost per?
It is close to $70, and I think one of the ideas, and I know we were speaking about it at Cabinet, is also looking at how school sites can look at perhaps some parent involvement funds or some Title I funds to pay for fingerprinting. The good news is that once you're fingerprinted for the district, say you're the parent of a first grader, you're fingerprinted for the life of the time that your children are in the school district, because we will always keep access to those fingerprints. So that might be a possibility, that we work with our school sites to have some set-aside funds for parent involvement to perhaps support families that may not have access to funding, because $70 is a high amount.
Can we work some sort of a negotiation with the company that does this? Where we would have one place that they could go that perhaps the price might be cut down? Because if we send everybody there, I should think it would be economy of scale.
Right, we could look at it. I know that typically that's pretty standard. No one's making any money on that. That's pretty much what's charged by the DOJ and the FBI, but I think we could certainly look at that, see if there's any cushion there.
Maybe we could also look at bringing fingerprinting company on site, and so it'd be more convenient for our employees.
Absolutely, we could do that also.
Yeah.
There's some mobile, or we can go ahead and work with a neighboring business in Newark and then have some set-aside hours and then work directly with them.
My understanding of the tuberculosis requirement is that there be a questionnaire, a risk assessment questionnaire that's filled out, and then if that questionnaire, depending on the questionnaire analysis, that individual may have to be actually get the tuberculosis test. My question is this, that questionnaire, according to this policy, has to be submitted at the volunteer's expense. Yet the questionnaire can be approved by a nurse. Is there any way we can have our school nurse be approving those questionnaires so that, or certifying them, so that the volunteer doesn't have to incur that expense?
I think that's a good idea, and we could work with our district nurse. I know that she does support with employees the same process, so that could be something we look at. And I'll work with Dr. Wong to see how that can happen.
And if we could put that in the policy, that it would be approved or by the nurse. Otherwise, to get a doctor to do it is going to be very costly. Okay. Any other?
No, I have another.
Oh, Ms. Crocker?
I'm sorry.
Oh, Mr. Nguyen was next, and then back to Ms.
Thank you.
Crocker.
I think the key with the fingerprinting issue is that maybe our schools or our district need to communicate out to the parents sooner. That if parents are interested in volunteering in the classrooms or who will require fingerprints, that they start the process even whether it's the year before, before summer lets out or during the summer, versus waiting until school starts. Because if there is as you say, hit, it can delay it 5 to 6 weeks. And so it could be upsetting, even though the hit could be a false alarm or a false hit, but it's a hit nonetheless, and they'll hold it up. So I think once this policy is enacted, I think we need to aggressively approach our parents and just inform them that if they do want to volunteer, that they have to start the process way before the first day of school.
If I'm sorry.
No, I have a question about another piece. So.
If it's about this.
It's about this particular item.
Okay. Ms. Crocker?
I'll wait.
I noticed that we cover them with workman's comp. Is that a usual thing?
Yes, it actually is. And it actually is to our advantage, because if they were to get injured and we don't cover their workers' comp, we actually then are just open to a plain old tort lawsuit, which would not be limited, whereas within workers' comp, there's limits.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Preciado?
So I just wanted to say, in terms of what Ms. Salinas said regarding each site having funds potentially for covering the cost. I just want to make sure that we let folks know, we advertise that, because that might get lost. If I were to read this, or if you get a parent volunteer to go to a site and they're just like, well, you need a TB, $70, then it's like, I'll see you later. People won't actually, so we got to figure out how we advertise that piece. So I don't know if it's putting it in the AR that, like, that's the commitment, or if it's, I guess, I don't know, I'm trying to think, if you have thoughts on how to make sure we have that commitment.
I think one of the ideas we could look at is, as we start to prepare for the site planning time that our principals do with their school site councils, we would certainly give some support in that area as while we can't dictate what's written into the site plan, we can certainly speak to that this is one of the very viable, strong ways to encourage and maintain parent engagement that's with a lasting effect. Oftentimes, as we heard at our last LCAP, we want to go beyond the just, coming into the schools and perhaps we have some parents and guardians that want to be more involved. This would be a way to really engage folks and then support them with funds that are designated for that work. So we could support our principals with our school site councils to include it.
Another thought just occurred to me, and that is that the Educational Foundation really supports the entire district. And if we had a central place where we could get funding that we could, encourage more of our parents and others to volunteer, because they'll know that that cost is taken care of ahead of time, that would be good. Mr. Sanchez?
I would suggest, the good news is this is not something that absolutely has to be done tonight. If it is helpful we can bring it back for another reading and final revision if we have some. Is that okay? We're okay? Did we get some?
We are doing that
Did we
because
correct
it's on new business.
It's only on new business.
It's all
This is
done?
first reading.
Oh.
Well,
we worked out, this is the second reading, but it's under the wrong.
It's under the wrong place, and it sounds like we should bring it back anyway.
Because my point was going to be that even if we did it tonight or next meeting, these changes would not be into effect until fall. Is that correct? Or it wouldn't be immediate? July 1. So it was take effect for next school year. I just wanted to make sure the board was aware of that.
Okay, so.
President Thomas?
Yes, I would entertain a motion to extend the meeting.
I move to extend no later than 10:30.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Nguyen seconds. Please vote after I open it up. Five ayes, thank you.
So we're 11.5,
Next.
we're bringing back.
Yes. 11.6 is,
Move to approve.
or don't, okay, move to approve by Mr. Nguyen.
Donations.
I'll second it. This is a donations report.
I have a question on it.
Okay.
There was a listing of a plaque for the last donation listed down. What is our process for plaques putting up? And we're talking about $2,500 for a plaque?
Sure.
Is that what it was?
Do we know what that was?
The Philip Byrne,
Barbara.
that was at Newark Memorial. Does anyone?
I'm looking now. Memorial plaque, I don't know. We need
I mean,
to.
Mr. Barber was a former teacher at Memorial High School.
Is that a usual amount for a plaque, a memorial plaque?
Really depends on what kind of plaque you're
Yeah.
getting and what it is.
We can get some more information and a picture of it if you like.
Yeah, I think it would be important to follow that up because, anytime we install something at the site, that really should go through the district,
Process.
the principal, and then at the district office. So if if this has already been done, maybe we have to approve it. I think there is a board policy that may ask that we approve these kinds of things. So maybe you could check on that.
We can.
In the meantime, I don't, is there a problem with accepting that, or do you want to pull it?
It's kind of like with the, or it might be kind of like,
The
is
soft-
it already installed, like the software?
We don't know what this.
Well, I mean, I think, in my opinion, for this one, it's a little different, because the softball foundation and scoreboard dealt with legal DSA issues. For this
But-
plaque, I don't think there is
Well,
such
I
an
guess if
issue.
it's, I don't know how much the plaque's cost, but $2,500, if it's a huge plaque that then is blocking something, I don't know what that is about.
25 doesn't seem to be that much to me.
Okay.
I mean,
I don't think it would
as
be a
far as, like,
problem, however,
if
it
it's
is.
a custom plaque that's hung on a wall, you could reach 25 pretty easily.
And also, I mean, it would be good just
Bench
to
costs
recognize those folks and be like, yeah, thank you for.
Yeah.
So you want not to amend this by eliminating it or accept it?
I believe we should accept it, but I think that staff should look into, to make sure all the board policies have been followed in terms of the purchase and installation.
Thank you.
Okay. Please vote. 4 ayes. I'd like to read the donations. We have $559 worth of desk chairs for McGregor, Bridgepoint High School, donated by Fremont Bank. We have $326 for Newark Unified School District by William Lyon Homes, no specified purpose. And then we have $2,500 for the high school. Donor was Philip Barnum Foundation for Steve Barber Memorial Plaque. Thank you. Next, we have employee organizations.
So, I'll be quick. I said what I needed to say for the most part during 11.1. I would just like to say that you have 2 more meetings before March 15th, so y'all could have tabled that. You could have followed what the community wanted and actually looked for ways to work with your labor unions, but instead you decided that you'd rather go against the community. I just personally don't understand. I'm disappointed. That's sad.
Thank you. Is there anyone from CSEA or NUMA? Seeing none. Next, we move on to the consent agenda, and there is a request for someone to address us on 13.
No, we didn't do, consent, sorry.
13.3. Ms. Parks?
Okay, so the reason I pulled this on there is you have 20 employees that were your temps. These are your employees that apparently because of their classification, this is something I know that with site council before, all those people that we would pay for out of site council money all the years that I was on site council, these people were always considered temporary employees. I get it. What I want you to look at are the names of those people. 20 of those, 5 of them were Newark Memorial grads. 5 of them. Are they not, is that not what you've been cultivating? Have you not been cultivating these people to go into this field? 5 of those. Diana Kataki, who spoke earlier tonight, she's one of your grads, 2008. She's now at, I'm sorry, she's Milani. Whatever you call it now. It's Milani to me. But that's what you're cultivating here, and you're 25% of those 20, and that's only the ones that I know. Those are your Newark Memorial grads. It's a sad day, a very sad day.
Okay, do we approve these as a block? I believe we do, don't we? Or do we?
We do the personnel individually, and the other is a block.
Oh, is there another one for 13.2?
There's the 13.2 and 13.3.
No, is there another speaker is what I'm?
I I handed Shar 13.2.
Okay, so we're 13.2.
So just go down we should go in order, so it's 13.2.
So personnel report would be the first
Is
thing.
there a,
13.1.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so 13.1, may I have a motion?
a move to approve?
I'll second.
Okay. Member Nguyen moves, Member Crocker seconds. Please vote. Wait, I have to do that again. Okay, please vote. 4 ayes, thank you.
13.2.
Excuse me, we're on 13.2, the certificated seniority list.
I think we have a speaker for that, right?
So I'd just like to point out a few of the inaccuracies that you have in your seniority list. You might want to go through this thing because you have a number of teachers that have left the district in previous years, that have retired, that are at completely different sites or don't have the correct credentials. I don't know how you could even get through 11.1 when I can see, I don't want to out all our teachers, but Brianna Miller left our district last year, and I'm looking at her name right on the list. Yep, so maybe want to fix that a little bit.
Yeah.
Can we put that on hold until it's fixed?
Yeah, we need to move that.
Okay, do we have time to do this at the next meeting? We'll bring it on, okay.
Yeah.
That'll be brought forward to the next meeting. So let's move on to 13.3, release of temporary certificated employees.
I move acceptance.
Ms. Crocker moves acceptance.
I'll second.
Mr. Nguyen seconds. Please vote. 4 ayes, thank you. Next, we have the consent agenda, non-personnel items. I don't see anyone from the district, from the public that wants to speak to any of these items. So is there any board member that would like to pull any of these
I would like
items?
to pull 14.4.
14.4. Okay, I'd entertain a motion for 14.1, 14.2, and 14.3, 14.5 through 14.9.
I'll move.
Mr. Preciado moves.
I'll second.
Ms. Crocker seconds. Please vote. Four ayes, thank you. So 14.4, Ms. Crocker?
When we originally set this out, it was done with the basis that this was going to help attendance. Have we done any evaluation of this program as to whether it has actually made a difference?
So I'm looking at current baseline data, so I can actually share that today. I finished my last meeting of a one-on-one with every principal in the district, along with any support staff, as we look at our chronic absenteeism and as we look at whether or not our school sites are resolving students who need to go through the START process and the START process. I think it offers great timely data. And so far, as I said, this is my baseline year, new to using it, but I think using it in the sense of having our principals know that it is a goal that they're tying to their evaluation in terms of improving attendance, but it's also real-time data that we can support them with. I do want to share that as we're looking at closing and getting rid of our chronic absenteeism, data is the way to go, but it's also looking at how do we support our school sites with incentivizing them. Our front office staff has been wonderful with, this is the month of February where we're having every school site target 5 to 10 kids who at this point have 9 absences so far. if they continue on that path, they can become a chronically truant student. So again, baseline year for us, we're using this 3-year grant that we received to release some money of the general fund. So this contract is also paid out of the Prop 47 grant that we just received.
So there is a grant that's paying for this.
Correct.
Thank you.
I can actually give some history. This has actually now been in the district for, so it looks like the 10-11 school year was when it was first implemented. And for the 7 years prior to that, we were averaging 95.3%. Since we have been in our ADA average has been just under 97%. We did have a really low year last year at 96.25. It's actually the lowest we've had since we implemented it. But overall, we saw a general increase of about 1 1/3 to 1.5% since we've been using the program.
I had a question about the training. I had asked if, they'll train up to 4 times, 25 people at a time. Are we taking advantage of that? What does the training consist of, and would that help us maybe get better results?
So we've had one training so far. It's an annual training. I don't think we to date have really taken advantage of the 4 times a year. In fact, today, which was our last meeting day with the school, we now have a list of about 3 people who want to sign up for the training. We're going to roll it out again because we also have some folks who are new to their role with monitoring attendance, some internal movement that happened, so we have to do it again. So we are on track with that. They're very customer service friendly. They will do online training. They will do individual training. And so, yes, that's part of our plan to ensure. And back to Mr. Richards' point, absolutely, I think our attendance is doing well district-wide. Can we do better? Yes. But when we look at the chronic absenteeism of individual student groups, we're not hitting our targets. And that's why this data is more helpful, because it also supports us with letters home, that personal touch, and also calling out to our students who are not coming to school.
Ms. Crocker?
I noticed that whenever we have expulsions, suspensions, attendance is a big piece of it. And so I'm hoping that this will address this before the kids get to a point where they're chronic and it's hard for them to come back. So, thank you.
I also noticed from the LCAP presentation at the parent meeting that our chronic absenteeism is much larger than the state and the county. And do we know why, especially since we have this program?
So we're starting to unpack that data. We do have a significant number of students who have home hospital care or have are out due to illness. But taking that group of students aside, we do have a pattern of, at our lower grade levels, of students who are not coming to school on the Friday before a 3-day weekend. And we're working with our principals to really individualize that. It's a problem, and I think it's the more we get support from our families to bring their children to school every day, that's really where we need to be. I do want to commend at BGP, Mr. Wasser has developed individualized letters to send out, and he's been taking the show on the road, talking to our PTA groups, or his ELAC and his school site council, as it relates to the importance that even, especially at TK and K, that really is a formative year, and we need students to come to school.
I remembered in the past, the school bulletins always had a blurb about the cost of it to the district when a child is not in school, and they really reemphasize that. Is that continuing in our school site bulletins?
In some, I think what we're trying to also do is increase the message that it's also, while the school district is also losing money, students are losing instructional time. So yes, I think it's a double-sided message that we need to send forward, yes.
Great. I move acceptance of 14.4.
Ms. Crocker moves.
I'll second.
Mr. Preciado seconds. Please vote. 4 ayes. Thank you. Next, we move on to Board of Education Committee reports, announcements, requests, debrief, and discussion. Mr. Nguyen?
I'm sorry, thank you. Just a request in regards to the report. I think about 2 years ago, this board made a decision to merge the two schools, formerly known as Milani and Bunker, to BGI and BGP, as it is currently known. And so just a very tangible, nitty-gritty by the numbers, how is the experiment working? From a standpoint of student attendance, discipline, events or incidents, academic performance, et cetera. Not in the light of, what each school is doing, because we get that with the highlights, but down to the kind of the data-rich aspect of it. Because I think we did make a promise to the community that we would examine to see how well the merger was going to work and proceed from there.
Ms. Crocker?
I have a couple of reports. Number one, I was at Newark Memorial High School, and the Athletic Booster Club presented the Ring of Honor, which is the Athletics Hall of Fame. And it was a wonderful meeting because we saw people that came back from LA, from all different places to honor a select number of people that have done well, that did well in high school and have done well since. And so if you're interested in looking at this, I have this for you to look at. It was really a nice program, and kudos to the Boosters Club for doing that. The second thing is that Mr. Preciado and I went to our liaison meeting, and I think I passed out just sort of my notes about the things we covered. I don't know if you want me to go through this or not. We do have time before 10:30. I don't know, do you have some things that you wanted to add to it?
No, sorry.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
What? The floor is mine, okay. The things that we talked about, Mr. Preciado and myself were there along with Mike Hannon and Susie Colazo, who are city council members, and John Becker, Letty, Salinas, Brian Richards were there as staff people to help. And so what we did is we just talked about various issues that were important to both the city and the school district. We talked about Area 3 school site, and they clarified the information that they have not started the 7-year clock because there has been no permit that has been requested for building. They've been doing the groundwork and the pipe and all the landscape, but they have nothing that requires that we start worrying about the 7 years. They will notify us. Are you going to notify us? And they said they will notify us when that happens. And hopefully we know well before that happens, but I'm assuming with the committee that's true. We talked about McGregor Field and the cost of watering. We talked about the possibility of digging wells because according to our friend who is on the water board, we can drill a well and get non-potable water that would be good for landscaping. And the city can get it at a price that is like, there's no cost. And so we were trying to work out some way that we could take care of fields that are used by the city as well as the school district, and keep them green instead of having them brown by use of the water. And I was told that there was plenty of water in the aquifer. I don't know how many years that will be true, but from the savings of the amount of money we spend on water right now, according to Mr. Richards, it'd be $50,000, and I've heard comments about drilling a well as being about $50,000. So within 1 or 2 years, it would take care of itself. So we talked about the possibilities of this being something that would be citywide, not just school district-wide. We also need a new agreement about that, and so we're talking about getting that set up. We asked questions about the shot spotter, and they're going to bring back more information about that in terms of its used. Mr. Richards presented the Newark Unified School District to them and explained to them the joys of school district budgets, and answered questions of the people that were there. We used discussion of the use of well water to irrigate various fields. We said that. Support of of Area 3 school by the city, and they said that there's $3.7 million in developer fees so far. I think that's in addition to the 3 point something that we have in the fund right now. Is that correct? So we're talking about there's something like $7 million in developer fees. Is that what I'm doing the math? And because we had 3.7 million, I don't think they were talking about an overlap of their money and our money. But there's money in the pot. It will increase every time we have a new home. I was kind of excited to hear someone talk about a tax transfer. I mean, is that maybe something that we need to look into? But that was not from this meeting, that was just from here. We talked about the options of the Newark Unified School District courtyard location, threw out the idea that there might be something in the district that, or in the city that might be a place where the courtyard could be moved to a more efficient way. We discussed the development of the fine arts that are happening in the schools and the fact that there are field trips available for ballet performances in Oakland Ballet. That's something Ms. Colasso shared with us. We elected Mike Hannon to be a second year, and we actually, you said it was third year as chairman. This is the second year.
No, it says second term.
Second term, yeah. And he has been running the meetings and doing very well, and so we said, you know, why mess with it? He's doing well. We scheduled the year's meetings as the third Monday in January, April, June, and October. So that will be a constant, so that the city people will know as well as we will know, and if we save those dates, as long as we have this meeting, that would be time. We may decide we don't need a meeting one of these times, but it's sort of a placeholder for that. And we determined that the agenda should be published at least 15 days before the meeting. We had minutes that had not been processed, and I tried to write them very quickly, but did not do within the time, and so we will have that for the next meeting to look through. So I sent my take on that, I think it was April, last year's meeting, I think it was April 22nd meeting, and so we will clean that up and get it to them. And that was us dropping the ball, not the city. So, and the city said they need to have time, 15 days, which I think is wonderful. Mr. Preciado, was there anything else?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to emphasize that for our purposes, that what we need to move on is to just have discussions regarding the Area 3 school of how we're going to proceed, of whether or not we're going to proceed, and just have those kind of mapped out as part of our strategic planning.
Mr. Preciado, do you have anything else? Okay, I sat down with the superintendent and we looked at the board study sessions, the 6 or so meetings that we would have that would be dedicated to board study sessions. And I had gone through our board requests at various meeting minutes that I looked up, plus things that came out when we were talking about the need for strategic planning and the need for doing master facilities plan and such, and put together a matrix of ideas for agenda items for those study session meetings, which the superintendent is talking about adding to and working with staff on. So hopefully when Mr. Preciado and I meet on the 12th to talk about the next agenda, and as staff looks at that, we will put together a calendar that populates the whole year out for topics to be discussed at those meetings. So those meetings can have maybe a 1 or 2 hour workshop that we sit around the table and talk about things. They could have a series of staff presentations on various programs and initiatives. We can be getting an annual report like we should on from special ed, another one from adult ed, another one from Bridgepoint and McGregor, which typically haven't been spotlighted. So we can plan all of that out for a year so that at any one meeting, no one is overburdened with planning, and yet we would be able to hear from a series of staff members on topics that we'd like to hear about. And Superintendent, you can add that and maybe do your debrief.
Okay. And I've started working with staff to kind of help me sequence those items in a way that we can manage it in a timely manner, but also not overwhelm staff, and try to sequence out some of those things. So we should be able to have a draft for us to begin working through to kind of map out. I've asked staff to prepare a 24-month map, and we'll start working on it, and I think that'll help us kind of stay on track. But I've asked Ed Services to spend some time thinking about, are they in the right sequence? Are we still lined up with state deadlines? And is it reasonable and within the timeframes that we thought we could do it? So we're working through that, and we'll have a first draft to begin looking at. So I think it'll help staff and the board kind of make sure we're staying on pace with our priorities, and I think that's going to be positive. Outside of that, I would say Rotary Crab Feed. Well, let's start with Friday night, which is the Elegant Affair. I will be attending with Jan. We're going to go to this affair.
That's right.
What time
We'll
is
dance
that?
our feet off, no.
Well, we might.
I'll
And then
be
the
there as well.
And the next day, okay, good. And the next day will be the Rotary Crab Feed, which does contribute large amounts of money to our students and to our district, and they just are a great partner with our district, so I want to put a plug in for the Rotary Crab Feed, and I hear there are still tickets available. If
Yes,
some
there are.
people would like.
And we were
that.
doing takeout.
We still do takeout.
Yeah.
Rotary's doing takeout.
So at 7 o'clock, if you want to buy a ticket, you can go and claim your takeout bucket of crab and bring it home to your family if that's what you'd like to do.
Okay. That concludes my concluding comments.
Without any further business, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.